Hello and welcome to the ABC podcast. This is episode 14. My name is Alex and I am joined once again by Brandon Central Park. What's up, Brandon?
That was a good one. Okay, I will give you my hat off for that one, even though I'm not wearing a hat.
I'm wearing a hat.
Shut up. I give my props to you. That was a good one.
Thank you.
Actually, it was funny. My coworker, he was listening to the podcast.
Wait, who?
Darnell.
Okay.
And I don't think he listened to the whole thing, but he listened to the first part, and he thought the part when you called me good hair was just so funny. So you're doing something right.
Oh, I'm touched.
I know. I don't know if you're watching this one.
Anyway, so we've got another show for you. As always, nothing special this time. But anyway, I guess we'll just go ahead and get into it. So first, we've got our ABCs of Geekdom. I'm going to kick it off. So this week is the letter C, and it's my turn to pick. And so this week I'm going with Carl Grimes, or Carl Grimes.
That was a lot of lung power.
Thank you. So Carl Grimes is one of the main characters on the TV show The Walking Dead and, you know, the graphic novel, but I haven't read the graphic novel, so.
I've read a little bit of the graphic novel.
I hear it's good.
It's good.
Well, then again, I hear people say The Walking Dead is good, and I don't think so. Well, I don't think it's great, as good as people say it is, but.
I need to start watching that. I plan to do that this summer.
It's your life. I'm not going to tell you what to do.
Hey,
I just think
okay.
there are a lot of other better shows that I would recommend before.
I mean, you're happy that I'm watching House of Cards.
That's true, but we will talk about that later.
Episode 3, people. I'm climbing the ladder.
Anyway, so Carl's a pretty interesting character.
When you say Carl from now on, like until the end of this segment, you need to pronounce it like
Carl.
Yeah,
is an interesting character. So when the show first starts, he's very young. He's maybe 10.
Is he the boy with the hat?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's maybe 10. So he's the main he's the son of the, I guess, quote unquote main character, Rick Grimes, the sheriff of whatever county they're from. Now I'm going to have to look that up. But yeah, so he's very young, and so if you don't know the story behind The Walking Dead, they're in the middle of the zombie apocalypse. In the very beginning of the show, Rick, before the zombie apocalypse happens, Rick is in a car accident, and so he's in a coma for about a month. Basically, they just stole the beginning from 28 Days Later and used it. Actually, maybe it's longer than a month. I don't really know. Anyway, so Rick wakes up and in the hospital, and like no one's there. Everything's gone to hell, and things are just bad. He walks down the street and he sees a zombie, like half a zombie, dragging itself towards him, trying to eat him. So basically, things are not looking good. And so eventually Rick meets up with his wife and kid and a bunch of other people who he ends up staying with for the rest of the show. Actually, well, I'm not going to spoil anything. So anyway, Carl is Rick's son. Carl is Rick's son. And so as the show goes on, you see a lot of character progression for him.
I feel like that's probably, I don't want to say the best, but one of the easiest ones to find because you're starting from a kid.
Yeah,
and he has
for
to grow.
sure. So he's dealing with all of these really terrible things. Just a lot of really, really bad things. Again, I'm not going to go into spoilers, but he sees a lot of things that most people should not have to see in their lifetime. And so you see throughout the show, he transitions from this innocent kid to a capable fighter to someone who just kind of doesn't see the point of life anymore. Like he just becomes so jaded with the world because of everything that's happened to him that all he cares about is protecting himself and his dad and his baby sister. And
where's the mom in this?
And so it's just a really, I don't know. He's a really compelling character, more so than most of the other characters on the show, in my opinion, because of that coming of age in such harsh circumstances that it's just really, it's one of the things that keeps me coming back to the show. Yep.
Nice. Very, very deep.
Thank you.
One last Carl before we leave.
Cool!
Never gets old. Did I ever tell you about one time in my ethics class, my professor, he made a question about The Walking Dead, and I could only answer about half the question. So I did it, and just to, I don't know, be dumb and maybe see if he's going to throw me a bone, I wrote around the edge of my paper a really big letters like Coral.
I think you sent me.
Yeah, and then he actually gave me partial credit because of that. I was like, wow.
This is not related to The Walking Dead, but one time my sophomore year of high school, I was in my English class, and we were doing a section on like Greek mythology.
Yeah.
And so, well, Greek culture and mythology, I guess. And so I missed a day for some reason, and so people were doing presentations, and then I guess the class after, or maybe at the end of this section, we were having like a quiz based on people's presentations or whatever. And so I missed the day, and so on the quiz at the end of the section, there was a question about somebody's presentation that I had missed that day, and it was about like a wedding tradition or whatever. And so I was like, I don't know the answer to this, so I just wrote that they break plates and say Opa. I don't know if that was correct or if whoever graded my paper just decided to give me points because it was funny, but they marked it as right, so I thought that was funny. So if you are Greek or you know somebody Greek, let me know if that is actually true. I've never seen My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
I haven't either.
I hear it's really funny. It's on my list. I just never watched it.
You're like me. You'll get to it eventually.
Eventually. Anyway, enough of that. Let's get into some old stuff. Actually, no. Before we get into old stuff, I have a story that's not related to anything nerdy. I just wanted to bring it up just because. Okay, so at work, I got a new mouse for my computer. So it's this tiny little wireless mouse, and it's like I don't know, it's just weird. You know how when you you have to to get time to get used to new things? Yeah. So I'm just getting used to this mouse, and the weird thing about this mouse is that the scroll wheel doesn't click. It just seamlessly scrolls, which is weird. I've never had a mouse that done that before.
Really?
Yeah. Huh. But anyway, so when I was messing around with this mouse, it gave me these flashbacks to the old mouse that we used to have for my computer.
Okay.
So, for my computer at home, I mean. So, for our younger listeners out there, which is probably, I would guess...
No one?
No, I would say the average age of our listenership is younger than I am. So, okay. I don't know how many people remember this. But long ago... Mouses didn't used to be... Mice.
I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding. That probably doesn't apply to this one.
Yeah. They used to have a ball instead of a laser light on the bottom. And so I always remembered that... So you'd have to, every once in a while, because the ball would pick up dust and it would collect underneath, you would have to open it up and clean out the dust and stuff off of the little scrollers. And so I remember figuring out kind of more or less how the mouse worked, because you would scroll it up and then it would move this little wheel, and that would tell the computer to move the mouse up, and it made sense to me. And I don't know, when I was looking at then I was looking at the mouse that I had at work and how it was all lasered, and I was like, this I don't understand this. It might as well just work on magic, because the other one was analog and I could see what was happening and it made sense, but this is not, and it doesn't make any sense to me. So I don't know. I just had this weird nostalgic feeling for cleaning my mouse.
I think this means you're getting old, Alex.
Probably.
I think this means you're getting old.
I don't know. It was just weird. But anyway, that's the end of my story. Okay, we can move on to old stuff. So first, last week I was talking about the music and how I'm still looking for recommendations about what to use for the music for the show, and that still applies. However, I forgot to mention something last week, and that is a bit of advice for the music for this show, and that is if you are listening to the show with headphones, which I recommend just because, I don't know, sometimes our voices are kind of uneven, and so Brandon is naturally a shade louder than I am, and so...
Am I really?
I would say so. I've gotten that feedback before. And I just from my own listening experience, that tends to be the case. Not always, but...
That's true. I mean, whenever, like, something exciting happens or you throw an insult my way, then my voice progressively gets louder. I'll agree on that.
Yeah. But anyway, so I recommend using headphones just so you can hear both of us better. But in particular, during the musical interludes, because of the way it's recorded, different, like, beats come out of the two headphones. So during the music, I recommend that you listen with both headphones because it makes listening to the music better. So.
Oh, wow. Thanks, Dr. Dre. Beats by Alex.
Anyway, moving on.
You know, on the side of the headphones, it should just have your face on it. With just your face is like slapped red on the side.
And I looked at the X on my 3DS. And nothing was ever the same.
Oh, man. Still one of my most favorite accomplishments.
Mine too.
Thank you.
But I think my favorite meme is the one of Jonathan where sleep is for the weak.
Oh, yeah.
It's so good. It cracks me up every time.
My masterpieces. Thank you. That should be the photo for this week.
I'll think about it.
It's better than no. Okay. Old stuff.
Okay, so old stuff. So first of all, Bulbasaur, who was our B letter last week. So we were talking about how Bulbasaur dug itself out of a little landslide, but Bulbasaur, in fact, has not learned the technical machine, or TM, dig in the Pokemon games. So...
Do we really need to clarify that?
Yeah.
I mean, it was in the show. I'm pretty sure he didn't need to learn dig.
Okay.
He knew how to dig.
In the show, there are some inconsistencies. For example, there is an episode where some Pokemon... This has to do with Bulbasaur because I was reading his Bulbapedia page. There's some Pokemon uses, I want to say, like, sleep powder towards Bulbasaur, or some sort of, like, spore type move, and Ash tells in the Japanese anime, Ash tells Bulbasaur to blow it away, but when they translated it, they dubbed it Ash tells Bulbasaur to use Gust, which is the actual move, which Bulbasaur can't learn. And then there's also another episode where he's fighting Psyduck, and he tells him to use Tickle, which is a move but wasn't introduced until, I want to say, Gen 3. Then right after that, or right before that, Ash tells Bulbasaur to use another move on Psyduck that Bulbasaur doesn't use. But Bulbapedia did not list dig in that section.
I'm just saying that if he didn't know how to dig, what do you think he's going to just look at this mudslide or rock slide coming towards him and just start having, he just breaks down a cold sweat and like, what do I do?
Maybe.
Oh my gosh.
Hey man, that's Pokemon logic.
Alright.
Anyway, and then also the episode where Bulbasaur almost evolved but didn't. It's called Bulbasaur's Mysterious Garden, not Bulbasaur's Secret Garden. That's what I said last week. And the only Pokemon that were evolving in that episode were Bulbasaur into Ivysaur. There were no Ivysaur evolving into Venusaur. There's only one Venusaur who controlled all of the Bulbasaur. So I don't know when that Ivysaur is supposed to evolve. Next thing... Okay, so Mighty Ducks, the animated series.
Can't believe we're going back to this.
You know what? I like to be thorough, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And it's my show,
that's
so
true.
I'm going to do whatever I want.
I mean, it just adds to 30 minutes of, time, but...
Okay, so the Mighty Ducks, they lived on this planet called Puck World, and everybody played hockey, and they were all ducks. And so... long ago, they were invaded by these reptilian aliens called the Saurians. something like that. But they were locked in dimensional limbo by a warrior named Drake Duquesne, who used his mask. So the Saurians had this technology that allowed them to cloak themselves, but Drake Duquesne's mask allowed him to see them. So I guess basically just had infrared vision, but for some reason, even though this was a technologically advanced world, this was the only device ever invented that was capable of infrared vision. But, whatever. So Drake Duquesne locks the Saurians away in this dimensional limbo, and then one Saurian named Dragonis and a few of his cronies. Oh, so Dragonis was a overlord, and so him and a few of his cronies get out of the limbo, go back to Puck World, try to take over, but this dude named Canard, he finds Drake Duquesne's mask so that he can beat Dragonis, and he gets a crew of his best friend and his best friend's brother, and then a few other capable fighters to fight back. They take down the tower, but Dragonis and his henchmen manage to get away, and they use the device that got them out of the limbo as like a transdimensional gateway generator or whatever. So they use that. So basically they go through limbo to
they have
try
a phantom drive?
Yeah, basically. So they use that to travel through limbo to get to another dimension. And so then the Mighty Ducks, well, they're not called the Mighty Ducks yet. Okay. The team follows him to, finish the job. And then when they're in when they're in limbo, Dragonis sets this electrical worm thing out to attack them. So it wraps itself around the ship, and then Canard is like, "Oh man, the only way this thing is going to give up is if I sacrifice or somebody has to sacrifice itself because it needs well, I don't know why. Anyway, someone has to sacrifice themselves." So Canard gives Drake Duquesne's mask to his best friend named Wildwing, and he's like, "Take the mask, you're the team leader now. You have to finish the job whenever you get on the other end of this gateway." So Canard jumps out of the ship, the worm eats him, Wildwing's super sad, and then they come out of the other end, and guess where they land? Yeah, that's right, they land on Earth. And so Jim Belushi, whatever his character's name is, his name is Phil something. They land, and he makes them into a hockey team, and they fight crime. That's the story. And, they're fighting Dragonis, and they want to get back to their home world. Yeah. It was obviously, it's not a masterpiece or a classic of a movie, but it was... No, I watched it a bunch of times when I was little.
That's a very intense opening for a show.
Yep. Next thing I have is in the Mighty Ducks movie, so the not animated one, the live action movie. We were talking about how Emilio Estevez, I thought, was the only person who went on to have a famous acting career, which is not the case. So Eldon Hudson was in that movie. Do you know who that is?
No, I don't.
He is Foggy Nelson in the Netflix original series Marvel's Daredevil.
I see.
I don't know if that was the first movie he was in or not. Now I'm gonna have to look that up, unless you want to do it right now. But he was in that movie, and then also in Mighty Ducks 2 or D2 and D3, as they're called. Kenan Thompson is in both of those movies, and D2 was the first movie he was in. So that was before he was in Kenan and Kel or The Good Burger or All That or Saturday Night Live. So
good to know.
Yep. I like Kenan. He's funny.
I do too. A funny thing that I saw in an interview one time, or I read in an interview, was whenever they really need to laugh, they'll ask Kenan to make a funny face. And you have to... I don't know if any of you guys have seen Kenan Thompson on Saturday Night Live, but he makes some of the funniest faces. And it shouldn't be that funny, but maybe because it's live and it's just in the moment, he'll make just really strange faces. Especially when he plays Whoopi Goldberg. Oh my goodness, just absolutely hilarious.
Okay, next thing. Okay, so we're talking about the Pokemon Rotom.
Yeah.
Because, he inhabited the Pokedex in the new game. And so the Rotom appliance forms, I got the typing wrong. So last week I was saying that it was ghost type and then whatever element. but it's actually the other way around. It's actually electric and then the element. So electric fire for heat form, electric water for the wash form, electric ice for the frost form, electric flying for the fan form, and then the last form, I actually got the name wrong. Last time I said cut form. Okay, sorry about that interruption, but I was saying that I got the name of the lawnmower form incorrect last time. I said it was the cut form, but it's actually called the mow form, and that is electric grass type. Yeah, so so these Pokemon were introduced in the 4th generation, and so when did that come out? So that was Platinum. Platinum came out like 2010. So it was, anyway, so my roommate Armando, Rotom and the appliance forms were introduced before he and I became roommates, and so after we became roommates, at some point he found out about the appliance forms, and he, for some reason, he just like flipped out. He's like, "This is the dumbest thing ever! Like, why? Like, this is a freaking microwave! Like, why? Even though it's an oven." He's like, "Why is this a Pokemon? Like, blah 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 blah." And yeah, so now anytime he wants to make fun of Pokemon, he's like, "Oh well, they can just make a mixing bowl and make it a Pokemon with Rotom." And I was like, "You're an idiot." But
mixing bowl is the first thing that came to your mind.
Yeah. I mean, they've got pretty much all the other, like what else would they really, like, what other, a microphone? And then our microphone came alive and killed us all. And by our microphone, I mean my microphone, because I bought it with my money.
You just have to rub that in my face, didn't you?
Hey, you're free to go buy your own.
Okay. On top of all the other things I need to buy in my life.
So anyway, National Treasure, the 3 main characters are Benjamin Franklin Gates, played by Nicolas Cage, which, side note, I always thought that was funny, how his name was Ben Franklin. Because, like, it works, because they're both first names, just like Ricky Bobby, but, you know, obviously more historically significant. I don't know, it just, like, really fit with his character and everything. I don't know. It was a nice touch.
I actually could say it is one of Nick Cage's better roles.
Maybe.
As opposed to Ghost Rider?
I like Ghost Rider.
You liked him as Ghost Rider?
Yeah, I genuinely enjoyed
actually, I've only seen
Ghost
the first
Rider.
one. I actually the second one.
Okay, yeah.
I was actually okay with it. I just like jab at Nick Cage.
Spirit of Vengeance was pretty bad.
Was it?
Yeah, the first Ghost Rider was really good. I'm
out,
not saying it's really good, but I enjoyed it.
Then I found out Idris Elba was in Spirit of Vengeance too. I was like, okay.
But that's not MCU, so it's all kosher.
He was still coming back for the apocalypse.
Anyway, then Abigail Chase is the American-German woman, and the actress's name is Diane, I believe you pronounce her last name Krieger, because she is actually German in real life.
Guten Tag.
Is that all the German you know?
9.
And then, last but not least, Ben's handy tech-savvy sidekick, his name is Riley Poole, played by Justin Bartha.
I actually don't know him from anything else.
He's in The Hangover.
Is he really?
Yeah. He, no spoilers, but he's one of the main characters. I mean, I don't know if you can really spoil that movie. There's not... I mean, I guess it's got more plot than your run-of-the-mill dumb comedy, but still, whatever. I'm not going to spoil it. You never seen it, have you?
No.
Yeah. It's pretty... I think it's pretty funny. The other two are not really worth your time, but the first one is. In my opinion. I know there are people that would disagree with me, but you should add it to your list.
It actually is on my list.
Oh, okay. All right, next. So we were talking about Injustice. And so last time I was talking about how Gorilla Grodd was in the background of part of the Strikers Island stage. Mm-hmm. And so we got sidetracked. And so I was talking about how in the Injustice 2, how he was going to be a playable character and how they're going to deal with scaling him down. Now, since we recorded, they came out with some gameplay, and we actually do see him fighting a little bit, and we'll talk more about that later. So it turns out they actually do scale him down. And so I still don't know how I feel about it, because on the one hand, so the Injustice universe is it's its own separate thing. Like there's a DC comics based on it. So, the first game and the second game are related. And so, it's just kind of weird that, they had Grodd in the first game and he's gigantic, and now he's in the second game and he's, still really big, but obviously a lot smaller.
I think it's just an aesthetics thing.
I mean, I get they had to do it, obviously. I said this last time, like, they totally had to, and I think Grodd is going to be a really cool character, or at least he has a lot of potential to do a lot of really cool and unique things, but at the same time, it's like, are there two Grodds, or, what's happening here?
I think, honestly, you're just thinking a little bit too hard.
That's entirely possible, but still, it's weird. But, on the other hand, so before the last Super Smash Bros. Games came out, the people, I would say that the character that people demanded the most come to the new game was Ridley, who is the dragon-like boss. Probably he's the leader of the Space Pirates in the Metroid series. And so I listened to this podcast all about Super Smash Brothers before the game came out. After the game came out, ironically, they kind of like went away. But before the game came out, they were talking about all the rumors and the leaks and just, all of the stuff that was happening. And so based on what I was hearing from them, like, people were like getting into arguments about, oh, Ridley should be in Smash and he would be really cool. And like, the anti-Ridley people were saying he can't be in it because he's too big, because in the Metroid games, he's, like 5-10 times bigger than Samus. Like, he's enormous, but people...
I've always found it weird that his name was Ridley. Like, he has such a normal name.
Have you ever met anybody named Ridley?
Ridley Scott.
Have you ever met Ridley Scott?
It's the name of a person.
Okay, but who else is named Ridley?
I mean, I'm just saying... It was just funny to me.
Okay.
It's like if instead of the dragon in The Hobbit being named Smaug, his name was Jonathan.
Actually, it's funny. I follow the Twitter account of this radio program called Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me, which is really funny. And so earlier this week, the show is a satirical take on the news, like it's a quiz show about the current week's news. And so the Twitter account, aside from, giving updates about the show, they just tweet random, snarky things. And so earlier this week, they tweeted, it was, a conversation between George R.R. Martin and his editor. Mm-hmm. And it was the editor was like, let me get this straight. You have people in your books named Aegon and Rhaegar, but also people named Kevin. And then George R.R. Martin was like, yeah, but it's spelled weird, so it makes sense.
No, that's exactly what I thought. Like, with Cersei Lannister.
Right.
And then Ned Stark.
Well, that's a shortened name.
No, I know where it comes from because it's short for Eddard.
Right,
but,
and that's not
but when I first saw it, I saw Ned.
Right.
The first thing comes to my mind, Ned Flanders.
Oh, I was going to say Ned's Declassified, but Ned Flanders works.
And then there's, Bran, which is Brandon.
Right.
Shout out to me. And then Rob.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that's not too, too uncommon in the medieval setting it has. So.
Right.
But, I mean, I get what they're trying to say.
Yeah. Anyway, what were we talking about?
We went from this to Ridley.
Right, okay.
How did we even talk about Ridley in the first place?
Okay, well, because we're talking about Grodd. But anyway, so they were saying, okay, Ridley's too big in the Metroid games, but then people would come back and say, well, in a lot of the Mario games, like Bowser's size, he'll either be, a few feet taller than Mario, sometimes would be like 100 feet taller than Mario, and just varies. And so basically what they're saying is that Nintendo, the scale doesn't really matter, so that's where I'm coming from. And so I think now that NetherRealm has done this, where they had an established Grodd in their universe who was huge, and now they scaled him down to make him a playable character. Nintendo could, in theory, even though they definitely won't. I'm not saying that Ridley's going to be a playable character in the next Smash Brothers game, but in theory, Nintendo could look at this example and say, okay, I guess we were wrong, and we can put Ridley in Smash.
That's true.
Anyway, that's my rant about Grodd and Ridley. Also, on the Injustice note, we forgot another Batman character in the game, Catwoman. Funny thing about Catwoman, so all of the characters have a super move, right? When they build up 4 bars of meter, they can use their super move, and all of them are pre-rendered cutscenes, so basically they just look a lot more stylish and higher definition than the regular fighting, except for Catwoman's for some reason. It's an in-engine cutscene, which was always struck me as really weird. It's like...
Is it really?
Yeah, it's I'm not saying this is the case, I don't know why, but it's like they forgot to like make a cinematic version of her super move. So anyway, that was always a weird thing about Catwoman to me. Other than that, she's a pretty fun character. Not my favorite, but she's alright.
I'm actually really good with Catwoman. Surprisingly.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I'm more better with the melee types.
I always gravitated towards the power characters.
See, those are always hard for me. Like Raven, I'm not very good with Raven.
She's not a power character.
Well, I understand a power character, but she relies more on... Well, I mean...
No. By power characters, I mean the ones who could take the heavy interactables and like throw them instead of just like jumping.
See, I thought you meant like superpower, like the ones that rely more on their powers.
No.
Yeah, so that's what I thought you were talking about.
No.
That's been cleared up. Thank you.
So there are 3 classes of character in the first Injustice game. I'm guessing the second Injustice will probably follow suit, but I mean, we'll see. So there's the power characters who basically have super strength. So think your Superman, Aquaman, Green Lantern, etc., etc. Basically anyone who has super strength. And then there's your tech characters. So guys like Batman or Actually, I think Nightwing might have been an acrobat. So like Batman or... I'm trying to think of other tech characters or gadget characters. I'm pretty sure Harley Quinn was one.
Does Deathstroke count?
Yeah, he was one,
Yeah,
I think.
I feel like he would count.
I think he is. So basically, on certain interactable objects in the arenas, instead of picking them up and throwing them, they would attach an explosive to them, and then it would blow up. And then the third class of characters are like the light and quick characters, and they're called acrobat characters. So they would like do a leap off of the interactable, and examples of acrobat characters. Scorpion was one. I'm pretty sure Nightwing was one.
See, but if that's the case, I feel like Batman would be one because he does that too.
But he puts the explosives down.
Yeah, but he jumps off of things too.
Okay, I don't know the breakdown. I'll look it up next week. Moving on. So we were talking about the Goonies, how they're going to be in LEGO Dimensions, and we weren't sure when that movie came out, and it originally released in 1985. So another 80s franchise in LEGO Dimensions.
Shout out to the 80s.
Yeah,
Thanks
they're really showing the love, man. Next thing, so we were talking about the Pokemon Sun and Moon trailer.
Yeah.
And Zygarde's different forms, and so the 100% form or the complete form, the Megazord looking one, it used a new move called Core Enforcer that we forgot to talk about. So basically what he does is he like jumps up into the air, and out of his chest he fires like this laser beam thing and draws a Z on the ground like Zorro, and then he used it on a Garchomp, and I don't remember if it was super effective or not. I don't think it was.
Well, one thing you can check.
Great.
I want to say it was, but don't take my word for it.
I won't.
When do you ever?
Sometimes.
Yeah. Keep telling yourself that, Alex.
Anyway. So yeah, Core Enforcer, it looked really cool. It looked like a super long animation. So like it's cool the first time, but then after
like when you get into the game, you have to it takes you out of it, I feel, because you have to wait the 2 or 3 seconds while it's happening. You're like, okay, I'm right here, probably gonna go get a snack while I come back, and then it's gonna be finished. Yeah.
So, but other than that, I mean, it looked cool.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that turns out. Speaking of Pokemon, so I was comparing Zygarde 10% form's new ability to another Pokemon called Darmanitan. You know how I was talking about how it has 2 forms when it falls below 50%, and I was talking about the stats. And so This is actually really interesting. So, Darmanitan's regular form, just the plain fire form, its stats are 105 HP, 140 attack, 55 defense, 30 special attack, 55 defense, and 95 speed, for a base stat total of 480. The Zen mode, which is the fire psychic gray colored form, it has 105 HP, 30 attack, 105 defense, 140 special attack, 105 special defense, and 55 speed, for a base stat total of 540. So in the transition from regular form to, or regular mode to Zen mode, it actually has a base stat total gain of 60 points, which is pretty interesting because... So in the 6th generation of Pokemon, there was a new thing called Mega Evolution. So certain Pokemon have what's called Mega Stones. You give them the Mega Stone, and then in battle, you can have them Mega Evolve. And so they all gain, well, I'll keep it really simple. All Mega Pokemon's base stat totals increase by a total of 100. Now, sometimes certain stats will be lowered in order to have super huge boosts, but most of the time they just get boosts in certain special or certain stats. And so I thought that they were the only ones who would have a base stat total increase in the middle of battle, but Darmanitan's Zen mode has this weird transforming base stat total increase, which I thought was really interesting. So now with that information, with that, precedent set already for a Pokemon to increase its base stats in the middle of battle, the core form could have really high base stats. Or sorry, not the core form, the complete form. I know you don't care, but let me have this.
This is, like you said, it's your show. You do you. Although I doubt you kept it simple, like you said.
Well, I didn't talk about the typing or the moves. Well, actually, the moves don't change.
Okay. What's next?
I meant abilities. Okay, so next, Alexander Skarsgård. He's playing Tarzan in the upcoming Legend of Tarzan movie. He is from Sweden. And last week we said that we didn't really know him from anything big. He's actually in True Blood, which I know is a really popular TV show. I've never watched it, so that's why I don't know him from anything. But
so you went from a vampire to Tarzan?
Yes. It's like Cedric Diggory, what's the actor's name? Robert Pattinson.
Yeah. He went from a wizard to a vampire.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, he dies in the 4th Harry Potter movie, spoilers, so maybe he came back to life because he was a vampire. Who knows? Maybe it's all one big universe. Would you care to explore that theory further?
I feel like if we do, the universe would implode on itself. And everything's just going to create this big old black hole of fanfics. The universe can only hold so much.
I don't think there are any other characters in the Twilight movies, in the Harry Potter movies. Nobody comes to mind. But
do you want to research this? Nah.
I say that now, but I probably will. But in the meantime, I guess we can move on. So last time, Margot Robbie is also in The Legend of Tarzan, and I was talking about how...
Oh, she was?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so she actually is older than me. She was born on July 2nd, 1990. I was born in July of 92, so she's a couple years older than I am.
She's still relatively young, though.
No, definitely. Yeah. But
see, if only we pursued different things, we could be just like her. What are we doing with our life, Alex?
Hey, we have a mildly... No, we're not even mildly popular. Not yet.
No,
not yet.
No. I mean,
maybe
there's
one
always
day.
hope. There's always hope. We're just like constantly... We can be like those people on the YouTube comments that say, check out my channel. No, we'll never do that. I hate people like that.
But you can email us, abcpodcast92@gmail.com.
Just start handing out flyers in the streets. So give us an email.
Check out my mixtape.
I mean, that time when you were reciting the Danny Phantom intro song, that was pretty fire. I'm not going to lie. Like, literally, the temperature went up in the room. I was like, oh my. I couldn't even talk into the microphone.
So next thing, Lego Star Wars: The Freemaker Adventures. So the first lightsaber ever made was called the Kyber saber, and yeah, like you said, they just throw it on the ground and break it into crystals, which doesn't make any sense at all. Because I'm sure you know this, but for the listeners out there, so all lightsabers are powered by this type of crystal. I don't remember what type of crystal it's called, but so there's different colors, and the different colors like actually do. It's not just an aesthetic difference. Like they actually do have a meaning. Like, what is it? The green lightsabers are more combat based, and the blue lightsaber wielders are more force focused. Something like that.
I have no idea.
Did I have backwards? You don't know?
I actually don't know this.
Yeah, I've read that somewhere, and then I don't know what purple means, and then obviously red.
I know purple is super rare.
Yeah,
that much I know.
Yeah, but anyway,
for the one black guy in the Jedi Council,
racist. Anyway, so yeah, the Kyber saber, and then when I was looking it up, I found out the timeline placement is actually, so the show is going to take place between the events of Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, and Episode 6, The Return of the Jedi. Why those two in particular, I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll see whenever it comes out, but I don't have a theory. Do you?
Maybe because we haven't seen anything that happens between 5 and 6, really.
Well, what about between 4 and 5? I don't think anything happens between. I mean, I'm not saying.
No, that's only like that's the only reason I could think of.
All right, because I mean, plenty of stuff happens between 2 and 3. That's when the Clone Wars takes place.
But honestly, I honestly don't know why they would choose that.
Yeah. So anyway,
once again, I think this is just something they want to play around with.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I was looking it up, I didn't see anywhere saying that it wasn't going to be canon. That, obviously doesn't mean that it will be, but, I didn't see anything.
Man, if it's canon, then oh my gosh. Next episode of Star Wars, you see, like, Rey just, like, dismantle a starship just, like, right on the spot, and she puts it back together. And she sees things, like, glowing. She's like, what are you looking at? It's like, man, do you see this glow? What are you talking about? No, I don't see the glow. You see that thing's glowing. And whenever she hits a stormtrooper, he just falls apart.
And then next, so the Freemakers, so there's 3 siblings. I don't remember their names. And then they have a repurposed battle droid like we were talking about last week. But then the person who puts them onto this quest to help her find the lightsaber crystals, she's a Jedi named Nair. It's either Nair or Naar. It's spelled Naare. But point is, she's a Jedi who survived the Jedi execution, or what's it called? Purge? I think it's Jedi Purge. Which,
what?
I don't know. I have a real problem with that, because this is going to make me sound like a, crotchety old man, but in the first Star Wars, in A New Hope, they say that Obi-Wan he's the only Jedi to have survived all these years. But then in Episode 5, oh, guess what? There's Yoda. And then Episode 6, oh, guess what? Darth Vader used to be a Jedi. And then we go back in time, we have, we go back in time, there's the prequel trilogy events, and, that's fine. And then, but then after that, in the stuff that's, not canon anymore, I know there were more Jedi who survived the Purge, but then in Star Wars Rebels...
the Purge. Sorry.
In Star Wars Rebels, Ahsoka manages to evade the clone troopers, and so she survives, and there's a couple other Jedi in that show.
Technically she does, but if you really, really want to be detailed about it...
I don't know what happens. Don't spoil it.
Oh, okay.
No, seriously, don't spoil it.
Okay.
I'm going to watch it.
Okay. It's actually really good. That's why I'm actually agreeing to that.
Okay. Actually, side note, when I was looking up the Freemaker stuff, it reminded me of, before the Clone Wars, there was another show on Cartoon Network called Clone Wars.
Yes, there was.
The 2D one, which, as soon as I saw it totally came back to me, but before that,
it didn't hit
I had no recollection of it. Was it you? So you watched it?
Yes, I watched it.
Was it good?
I loved it.
But is it better than the Clone Wars? About the same?
No, there's definitely a different style.
Okay.
I know the person who wasn't either the creator of Samurai Jack. He was involved with the production of Clone Wars.
Okay, I can see.
So you can see a lot of
Yeah.
the animation style is a little bit similar to Samurai Jack.
Yeah.
And it definitely has a different feel than Clone Wars. There's you can just tell just by the way it's made. Not saying that it's better or it's worse. It's just depends on how you feel, towards it.
Okay.
I think they're both spectacular pieces of work.
Okay.
It just depends on how you feel during the day, what you want to watch.
Anyway, getting back on my little rant. So Ahsoka survives in
Rebels.
Yeah, in Rebels they
Yeah.
survive, I guess they survive. And then in what's it called? The Force Unleashed, the one dude, I don't know what his name is, but in the very beginning there's a Jedi, and then
do you want to count that, because that's not canon?
It's not anymore, but it used to be.
It was like debated.
No, it was. Anyway, my point is that they keep saying like, oh, these Jedi all managed to survive, when the whole point of Episode 3 was basically the entire point was to show how the Jedi died and how Darth Vader came to power.
I mean, yeah, but just because he comes to power and the Jedi were like disbanded doesn't mean that every single one of them died.
I know, but it's like
there were tens of thousands of Jedi. I mean,
I don't think there were that many. By the time the
Clone Wars,
yeah.
Oh, okay. I was talking about the whole history of the Republic.
Well,
so
yeah.
yeah, by the time that happens, I mean, yeah, I'm not expecting to say like hundreds of Jedi survived the Jedi Purge, but
That's what it seems like.
I mean, obviously some of them are gonna have better chances than other ones. Like Kyondi Mundi, the guy with the big head.
Yeah.
He had no chance of surviving. Let's be real. He was in the front lines.
But he was a Jedi Master. He should have been able to deflect all of the lasers.
The clone troopers were taken from the Jango Fett gene specifically for that reason.
Were they really?
Yeah. I mean, they also needed capable fighters to participate in the war, but they knew that Mandalorians had a history with fighting Jedi.
Oh.
And Jango had a very good history of taking out Jedi.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
So
Interesting. Meanwhile, we just spoiled the entirety of the Star Wars franchise. So sorry we forgot to include spoiler warnings there. I mean, at this point, if you haven't seen Star Wars, that's your loss, not ours. So go watch them. I mean, what's wrong with you if you haven't seen Star Wars? Really? You have no comment on that? Okay, next. So we were talking about how Star Wars, the Clone Wars ended and it was on Cartoon Network, and then Star Wars Rebels started after that, and it was on Disney Channel because Disney owns Star Wars now. So Disney bought Lucas Arts, or the Lucas properties, in 2012, but the Clone Wars didn't end until 2014.
yeah, so that's why I was confused, because I thought because Disney owned Lucas,
Right,
for lack of a better word, Lucas Arts during that time. So I thought, while the production of Clone Wars was still going on Cartoon Network, Cartoon Network would pick up the other Star Wars franchise.
Right. Well, so Star Wars, the Clone Wars ended on Cartoon Network in 2013, and then it came back for a final season on Netflix in 2014. So it might have been like a contract thing where they were like, okay, we'll let you finish season.
Honestly, I feel like that might have been a thing.
Yeah, but I couldn't find anywhere to confirm that. So next, in the Spectacular Spider-Man, we were talking about Kenneth Choi, how he was going to be the principal of Spider-Man's high school. So I said that in the Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon, Peter Parker attended Midtown High. The actual full name of the high school was Midtown Manhattan Magnet High School.
Thank you for telling me that.
You're very welcome.
I totally needed to know that.
Well, if that's the name of the high school in the Spider-Man Homecoming, then you will thank me, not sarcastically. Actually, you probably won't. Well, he was in high school in The Amazing Spider-Man. I didn't look up what high school that was called.
Oh my gosh, Alex.
Anyway, moving on.
What should we call West Side High School?
They're probably maybe just like in a West Side Story. Did you ever watch West Side Story?
I did not actually.
Oh, really? We watched it in high school.
Really?
Yeah.
I haven't seen that.
In freshman year, because we read Romeo and Juliet. So.
I remember reading that.
Me too. Well, because I read it again in college.
Yeah.
Well, I quote unquote
read it
again.
Yeah. I feel like we do a lot more work in high school than we do in college. Sometimes. Other times you just put your whole butt into your work and it steals your soul.
Yeah.
And that's how I am right now.
It's summer. Wait, are you taking classes?
No.
Okay, well then...
I found out one of my classes got canceled.
Oh, dang.
So I have to reformat my entire schedule.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
That happened to me actually it wasn't last year. It was the last year of college, but it was like 2 weeks before, or like 1 week before classes started.
Like literally when I opened up the email and I read it, first thought in my head was, oh no, bro.
Okay. Anyway, this doesn't have anything to do with our podcast.
We're just like ranting on our personal life.
It's late. For reference, it is currently 9:30 at night on a Friday, so...
Let's see if we can finish this by 10:30.
That's definitely not happening.
Never say never. Thank you, Justin Bieber.
Or Miss Frizzle.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. So, John Williams. So, I did quite a bit of research here. Well, not really research. I just went on his Wikipedia page, but I wrote down a bunch of stuff.
That counts as research.
Sure.
If there's anything I learned from school, it counts as research.
Okay. So, John Williams has 50 Oscar nominations. He's won 5. So, and he's actually not... He doesn't have the most nominations. He actually has the second most number of nominations after Mr. Walter Disney.
Really?
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Walt Disney had 59 nominations.
My man, Walt.
Yeah. So John Williams is, I guess, title is he has the most nominations of any living person.
How old is he?
I didn't look it up.
Oh, gave you something else to look up.
Perfect.
You're welcome.
Okay, so John Williams' first Oscar nomination was in 1967, and he was nominated for multiple movies in 1969, 1972. He was nominated for 3 in 1973, again 2 in 77, 82, 84, 87, 89, 90, 91, again 3 nominations in 1995, and then doubles in 01, 05, and 2011. So that's a total of 14 years where he was nominated for more than one movie.
That's ridiculous, man.
And since 1967, he was not nominated for an Oscar in 1968, 70, 76, 79, 85, 86, 92, 94, 03, and from 2006 to 2010. Also, in 2016 was the 88th Academy Awards, not the 75th. I don't know why I thought that, because that was clearly a long time ago. So,
it's quite a career.
Indeed.
It really is. You think at this point he just gets tired of like these nominations? So I know a lot of times people are like, I don't even care about the award. It's the nomination that counts. You think to him it's just like, just give me the award at this point. I don't care about the nominations.
I mean, he has 5 awards too.
That is true.
Anyway, so completely switching gears. The old Muppets, the 2 guys in the balcony.
Yeah.
Their names are Statler and Waldorf.
Okay.
Yeah. And I don't know why I can never remember their names, because they're like some of the funniest Muppets. Like their one-liners are usually pretty funny. Yeah. Not always. Sometimes they fall flat, but they're pretty good. And then the last old thing I have to talk about is, so I got on my work's Twitter account, so not mine, and I typed in Brandon Park, and our Brandon Park at Megzakui Korean is number 16 on Twitter's search results. So
I would say it's not bad. It's not bad at all.
I should have looked at what mine is. That would have been interesting.
My goal is to be number 1 on Twitter.
Okay.
Of the search.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Anywho, that's all our old stuff that we have to talk about. So we're going to go ahead and take a break. And you will listen to music. We're going to do some things. And by do some things, I mean watch some YouTube videos pertinent to what we will discuss next, and then we'll come back and talk about said things pertinent to said things we will be talking about. I think that sentence made sense. Anyway,
I think he was just trying to make big words.
No, never mind. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back. Let's kick things off with the Moana trailer. And I use that term very lightly because it didn't show us much of anything. So Moana is the first, not Asian princess, what is like
Polynesian Pacific Islander.
That's what I was looking for. So she's the first princess, Polynesian princess. So that's cool. If that's what you're into, you know, representation and all that good stuff. Basically, so something I noticed the second time watching it was that even though the movie's called Moana, she literally only says one word in the trailer, and that is or maybe it's So I thought that was weird. So basically, The Rock just does all the talking in the trailer, and then there's like a bunch of, you know, music and stuff just showing off some, you know, splashy action scenes. So, what did you think?
I agree. It wasn't anything that told us what the story was about, except for the fact that The Rock's character is a demigod. But I was okay with that because it was just a teaser, and that just gives me something to look forward to. It has. I mean, it's Pixar who's making this, right?
No,
it's not Pixar.
So
this is like one of those like Frozen films.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, it holds up to the standard of Disney visualization, and I feel like it's going to be a pretty good story, honestly.
I mean, I have no doubt that it will be because Disney is Disney, and they very rarely put out bad movies. But, you know, the movie's called Moana, but all we heard about was The Rock's character, and now, was his name Maui? Yeah, Maui, and how he does all these really cool things, which is, you know, fine, and then he does his little voodoo dance or whatever, and then, yeah, so it's like, well, is this movie about Moana or is it about Maui? Because from what we've seen...
I thought it was okay because it showed that even though he has done all these incredible feats, Moana is impressed.
I guess.
I'm looking forward to finding out more about this movie.
Yeah, no, me too. So it comes out November 28th, so not too long from now. So, yeah, it was a thing. I recommend go watch it. It looks really good. Really. So next thing we have. So Evan Peters. He is an actor from American Horror Story, and more importantly, in this context, Quicksilver in X-Men,
Days of Future Past, and
Apocalypse. Thank you. And he said, I don't know what the context for this quote was, but basically he said that he would be interested in doing a movie with his character Quicksilver and Deadpool, which would be a really interesting movie because of the way their characters are, or at least his portrayal of Quicksilver and Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool. Now, will this ever happen? I don't see why not. The second movie, the second Deadpool movie, if it's even in the scripting phase, certainly there's plenty of time to, change things around, throw him in there, even if it's just for one scene like it was in Days of Future Past, I'd be down for that. So, spoilers for Deadpool. In the after credit sequence, he says that Cable is going to be in the second one.
Now, I don't know how truthful that is. He might just be toying with us.
I have no doubt that Cable will be in the movie in some way, shape, or form. Now, how that happens, who knows? Maybe he's just like walking down the street and you're supposed to figure that out if you're really pay attention. Yeah. But I'm sure that Cable will be in there. Or what if he's fixing his TV at the beginning and he like holds up a little cable and and then he just like puts it down and you're just supposed to, that's the joke. I assume that's Cable. Yeah. But yeah, so what would you think about a Quicksilver Deadpool movie?
At first I thought, no, I wouldn't want it because their personalities are not similar, but they have the same gung-ho, I don't really care personality. Uh-huh. But then I thought about it and I don't know if it necessarily would be, teaming up with each other.
Right.
But I would love to see them interact in some way on film.
Yeah, I think there is a bit of a danger there because they're both very showboaty and kind of attention hog-y, if I can make that a word. I guess it's just as much of a word as showboaty, but yeah, I think that they're both funny, and I think there could be some, funny moments between them. And again, like I said, like Quicksilver could just like run into the fight for a minute or two, do whatever needs to be done, and then run away. But who knows? Who knows?
With Deadpool, anything's possible.
That is most certainly true. So next, it was announced, well, I guess not announced, Superman was cast for the television program Supergirl, which we've talked about a pretty decent amount on this show because I was watching it and I gave my thoughts on it, so I won't talk about it more. So this new Superman is going to be played by an actor named Tyler Hoechlin. I think that's how you say it. He was on Teen Wolf, which I've never seen.
I haven't either.
So I don't know what kind of actor he is. I don't know if he's going to be a good Superman or not. I'm sure they wouldn't have cast him.
He looks the part.
Yeah.
He has that much going for him.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, of course, it's a Supergirl's show, so he's not going to have all the attention. So I don't know how much screen time Superman's going to get. Maybe he'll come in for every 2 seconds in an episode and be like, hey, and just like fly away. And that's all they're casting him for.
Maybe. Could you imagine if in Civil War, that's what Spider-Man did? If he like swung down, he's like, hey, everybody. And then he just swung away.
Marvel would lose so many fans. I swear.
No, they wouldn't.
A lot of people would get disappointed.
Marvel could walk down on Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody in broad daylight and they wouldn't lose any fans.
Fifth Avenue?
Never mind. Somebody out there, I'm sure, will get that reference. Is that all we have to say about Superman? Yeah.
There wasn't really much to say about him.
No, not really. But I felt like we had to bring it up just because of how much we talked about Supergirl. Okay, next. So for the second week in a row, we're talking about celebrity gossip.
This is what the show's come to.
Hey, man, we're pandering for
attention.
Yeah. Anyway, it was announced that, well, not announced really, I guess.
It was seen.
Yeah,
And
somebody saw Tom Hiddleston, aka Loki, kissing Taylor Swift. Yes, that Taylor Swift. So just let that sink in for a second.
the thing, when I found out about this, I posted it on my Facebook that now we're stuck with two beings burdened with glorious purpose, and we have to deal with both of them. I don't know how I feel about this. Maybe this means that she's gonna make a cameo in the MCU.
Maybe.
I mean, I also see this leading to when, and I'm saying when Taylor Swift breaks up with Tom Hiddleston.
Oh, you think she's gonna break up with him?
Okay, somebody's gonna. It's not gonna last. You know how Taylor Swift is.
Do we know how old Tom Hiddleston is?
I can look it up.
Because I feel like that's kind of important. I don't want to say that, age makes a huge difference. It doesn't. Don't give me that look. But I don't know. That's a very strange coupling to me. So let's talk about Tom Hiddleston. He plays Loki in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, a big villain, a very mischievous, mysterious, dark person with a lot of mommy issues. Spoilers.
Dad issues.
And dad issues. Just a really generally messed up person. But in real life, from what I hear, he's a good guy. I think people say he's really jovial and easy to get along with.
So Tom Hiddleston is 35.
Okay.
Taylor Swift is 26.
Okay.
So a 9-year difference.
Okay. So it's actually less than I was thinking.
Were you thinking maybe like 15?
Yeah, something like that, yeah. But that is a fairly sizable difference. So anyway, I was saying Tom Hiddleston sounds like a good guy in real life. Taylor Swift, people make fun of her love life a lot, for better or for worse, because, she's made a lot of money off of it. But, yeah. I usually don't care about, celebrity.
And all this stuff.
Yeah,
but it's Loki.
It is Loki.
We gotta watch out for our Loki.
So, I mean, that's pretty much all I have to say. It's just very strange.
I did see it coming.
Of all the news stories I could have seen breaking this week, that was not one of them.
It was this. Yeah.
Anyway, enough of that. Now we are going to get into...
Oh, we forgot one. Donald Glover.
Oh, did I? Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay, so last thing... Well, not last thing.
Second to last thing.
Maybe. So, it was announced this week. There were several casting confirmations for Spider-Man Homecoming. The first of which was Donald Glover, who Brandon and I know better as Troy...
I don't know his last name.
Dang it. Troy... I have no idea.
Troy from Community.
From Community.
I also know him as Childish Gambino.
Yeah. Yeah, Brandon and I based our show off of Troy and Abed in the Morning. Not really, but...
That'd be fun if we did.
Yeah.
We could have mugs with our face on it. Troy and Abed in the morning.
Yeah, just like that. Except it's Alex and Brandon in the morning.
No, it's never in the morning. I never get up early enough to do these podcasts.
Well, I get up so I can go to work, so...
During the weekdays I do, but we shoot usually during the weekends, and I refuse to get up before 11 for these things.
I feel you. Anyway, so Donald Glover, they did not announce his part as far as I know.
So we know he's not going to play Spider-Man.
Right.
As many people wanted him to play.
He's not going to be Peter Parker.
I mean, okay, was that ever a thing? Because I know they wanted him to play Miles Morales,
right,
which he does voice in a cartoon. I forget which one.
I believe it's Ultimate Spider-Man.
I think you're right.
Right, so we could see that in... I don't see why not, some sort of dimensional rift to bring Peter Parker and Miles Morales into the same timeline.
And they had their own, handshake?
That's not off the table.
That is true.
But my first thought was that. So going back, when I think of Donald Glover, I think of him as Troy from Community, and he's a very, pretty immature, childish person on that show, and he's a student. Obviously, he's in college. So my first thought was, he could be this student. He could be, Peter's friend in high school, but he's a little old for that, I think.
Really? I could see him actually fitting in. He has like one of those ageless faces so far.
Because he's black?
No. What does that have to do? You could say it with any race.
Black don't crack.
Okay. I'm sure you've... I'm not going to say it, no. Keep going. Let's talk about...
Anyway, so that's a possibility, but who knows? Other than those two, I don't really have any ideas for what he would do.
Me neither. But I'm excited he's cast into it.
Yeah. So anyway... The next person we have is a guy named Martin Starr. And I know him from this HBO show called Silicon Valley, which is a pretty funny sitcom. It's not hilarious, but I've seen both seasons. Season 3 is on right now. It's pretty funny.
I only know him from Parks and Recreation.
He was on Parks and Rec?
He was in the episode when Leslie... It was during the Valentine's Day one. And Leslie leaves the scavenger hunt for Ben.
Okay.
And that guy, Martin Starr, he's working in the Snow Globe Museum.
Okay.
And that was actually one of my favorite scenes because he has such a deadpan sense of humor and he's just so monotone.
Right.
And then Ben's like, oh, hey, I'm here. My wife left me a message. And he was like, yeah, she said you're going to be here by noon. I'm not doing too well, are you? And Ben's like, okay, just show me where she put it in. It's in one of those. I'm supposed to tell you it's one of those snow globes. Okay, which one? Oh, I don't know. And his mannerism was just so funny to me.
Yeah, that sounds like him. So, yeah, like Brandon was saying, he's the same way in Silicon Valley. He's just very no expression, very robotic, I would say. In Silicon Valley, he's a stoner, which is kind of an explanation for why he just never shows any emotion. But so again, I have no idea who he's gonna be in Spider-Man.
Watch him be the bad guy.
I could see him being one of his teachers.
I could see that actually.
Again, that would probably be a very small part.
Yeah. But hey, when do we turn this assignment? Oh, I don't care.
Yeah, so, who knows?
Yeah. I've never heard of the show. I actually might check it out now.
Put it on your list.
Put it on my list.
Okay, and then last but not least, actor named Logan Marshall Green was cast. I know him best from... He was one of the main characters in the movie Prometheus. You remember the main scientist chick?
Yeah.
He's her husband.
Okay. That one that got burned?
Yes, that one. Thank you for spoiling it. Yeah, so he is, in comparison to these other two, he's a lot more muscular, I guess.
He has a better build?
Yeah.
No, actually, no, wait. Donald Glover has a pretty good build.
I mean, I don't think I've ever seen him shirtless.
I feel like he was shirtless a couple of times in Community.
I mean, it's entirely possible. I just don't remember.
Yeah.
But anyways, he just... I don't know. He just
you
looks
see him more for an active part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he could be a cop, maybe. Maybe Gwen Stacy's dad.
That dies again.
Yep. Spoilers. He could be... I don't know. He could be whatever he wants to be. Just like his mama always told him.
Or whatever his contract dictates.
Yeah, that too.
So I think that's enough for Spider-Man and the casting decisions.
Yeah, so that makes, 4 guys total who've been cast. Other than Marissa Tomei, I don't think there are any women confirmed to be in the movie thus far.
We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, there's going to have to be a romantic interest.
Of course.
For Spider-Man. So, Are you thinking Mary Jane? I doubt they would go back to Gwen Stacy after.
See, for me, Gwen Stacy makes more sense because it's in high school.
No, I agree.
But I'd say, actually, a lot of times, when does he meet Mary Jane? After high school or in high school? Because some of them, it's after high school. Some of it is in high school.
I think in the original comics, it was after high school. But I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'm pretty sure.
I feel like they would go back to Mary Jane because they went with Gwen Stacy.
Yeah, I don't see why not.
I mean, I like them both. Both characters I like.
Yeah.
But I'm putting my money with Gwen Stacy. I mean, Mary Jane. Sorry.
Yeah, and I know he's had other love interests like Felicity. What's her last name? I don't remember. Black Cat. But I don't think she ever went to high school with him.
No.
I mean, they could make it that way.
This is actually a good opportunity to bring the Black Cat into the series.
Why not?
Yeah.
But that would be interesting.
She'd be like, wow, another cat person.
Oh, okay.
I mean, Black Panther.
Oh, yeah.
Black Cat. So you like cats, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so now we're going to talk about the Electronic Entertainment Expo, better known as E3. So E3 is primarily it's an industry show for developers to show off their new video games that they have been working on and will be coming out relatively soon. But because of the rise of gaming culture and such, it's become more of a con. It's still more of an industry show than other like dedicated fan conventions. But
it's become much more for cosplayers and convention wise.
Yeah.
Which I like. I think it's a great thing to bring attraction in.
Yeah. So
it's like if Apple were allowed to, it allowed people to cosplay as
Steve
iPhones.
Jobs.
I was going to say iPhones. As iPhones and apps. Okay. But yeah, they can cosplay as Steve Jobs too, I guess.
Okay. It's not that funny.
No, I'm just thinking of somebody like coming in with a giant iPhone costume. And their kids are the apps. Anyways, what do you want to talk first with E3?
So there were a bunch of announcements this week, and we can't cover all of them because, first of all, I didn't read every article and watch every press conference and all that. So we're just going to talk about the main ones that really interest us. So the first one we're going to talk about, let's start out strong. Let's start with God of War.
Yes. When was the last God of War? Not the other games, like in the main when
God of War 3?
Yeah, when did God of War 3? Because there have been other games after God of War 3.
It definitely came out when I was in high school. I want to say either my junior or senior year.
So it's been a good amount of time since Kratos' story.
Yeah.
Because this is a continuation, not a
right. Okay.
This isn't a past.
So let's back up a little bit. So if you are a newbie to the world of video games.
Call him a noob. We're talking about video games. Call him a noob.
Okay, if you're a noob with zeros to the world of video games and you were hearing this for the first time, you would think that this was a brand new IP. But this is, in fact, the 7th entry into the series God of War. Mm-hmm. They are rebooting it. They're starting over fresh, so it's not going to be God of War 4 or God of War Thor, whatever, and
God of War Ragnarok.
Yeah, that would have been a really great name. Let's be honest.
Actually, yeah.
Anyway,
just came up with it on the spot.
Anyway, they're starting over fresh. So, the main character of the God of War series is a dude named Kratos. In the first God of War game, you play as Kratos. And you are sent on this mission to kill Ares, who is the god of war. And so it's later revealed through backstory that Kratos was a Spartan general. He was about to die, and he called on Ares to save his life, and in return, he would be in his service. So Ares came down, killed Kratos' enemies, and he gifted Kratos with these weapons called the Blades of Chaos, which were these powerful blades that were attached to chains that were attached to his arms, like burned onto his arms. And so he would use those, and he became Ares' emissary, I guess. Basically, he just went around and killed people for Ares, anyone who pissed him off. So he did that, and then eventually, one day, he killed his own wife and daughter, and their bodies burned, and then their ashes became fused to his skin, and so he was all white except for this one red scar that went all over his. Or is it a scar?
It's a tattoo.
It's a tattoo.
Yeah.
That went all over his body. Did they have tattoos back? Yeah, I guess they did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they call him the Ghost of Sparta. So anyway, so he works for Ares for a long time, but the guilt of killing his family eats him up, and eventually he says, okay, I don't want to do this anymore, and so he goes to Athena, and he says, make these memories, make the guilt of killing my family go away. And she says, okay, you stop working for Ares, you come work for me, and I'll make your
nightmares go away.
Yeah, I'll make your nightmares go away. So he does. So he works for her for a long time, and Ares is going around just basically killing people randomly. And Athena says, "Okay, we can't have this anymore. We need you to get rid of Ares." And so that's where the first game starts. All of that takes place before the first game starts. And so throughout the first game, you go to get more powerful in order to kill Ares, and then eventually you do, and you take his place as the God of War. So more things happen in God of War 2 and God of War 3, and we don't need to go into that because that's not as relevant. But in the end of God of War 3, you kill Zeus.
Yeah, give him the full scope. You kill all the gods.
Well, yeah.
You destroy Olympus. You destroy all of humanity at this point. You destroy 99.9% of humanity at this point. And then you kill Zeus.
Right, so you kill Zeus, and then in the end, you kill yourself. Well, Kratos kills himself, I should say. And we'll just leave it at that. So, this new God of War game was announced. Oh, actually, pause really quickly. So, those are the three main games. What happens? There are three other games. So, there's Chains of Olympus, Ghosts of Sparta, which are both prequel. Actually, I guess Ascension is too. So, those are both prequel games on the PSP. PSP, which they later remastered for the PS3. And then there's another game that came out after God of War 3 called God of War Ascension.
That's also a prequel as well.
Yeah, also a prequel. I've played God of War 1, 2, 3, and Ghosts of Sparta. Have not played the other two. And I'm a huge fan of these games. The God of War franchise is one of my favorites. God of War 3 in particular is my favorite out of the ones that I've played, and it is one of my favorite games I've ever played. Have you ever played them?
No, I haven't. And you know what surprised me about this? I thought they were going to be stupid slasher games when I first saw the footage. I mean, it had cool graphics and everything, but I thought the story would just be stupid.
Yeah.
And I read it, I'm like, okay, there's no real emotional attachment to it. You play the games and you look at the story. This is a great story.
See, that's what I think. But I have heard a lot of people, on the podcast that I listen to, say that, Kratos is a bland character. The only thing that motivates him is revenge and anger, and that's not compelling. I totally disagree.
Well, first of all, those are some pretty good reasons to drive a person.
Well, yeah.
And second of all, I mean, sometimes if you don't really pay attention, and a lot of times he kind of does, he can be one-dimensional because he's always angry and murders at a time. But there are moments throughout the games where he has some reflection, and you see the pain that he's going through.
Right, and so I think that those people, they just focus on what he feels the majority of the time, which, that's true. I'm not going to deny that. Most of the time he's just yelling at Ares or whatever.
Give us your Ares.
Ares!
Man, you've been practicing your voice acting in this podcast.
What were we talking about?
His personality. What he's like.
So I feel like
you feel like he gets portrayed in an unjust light?
Yeah, there we go. Thank you. So this new game, God of War 4... God of War 4.
Did you hear that it's actually a reboot to the franchise?
Well, no.
Or is it a continuation?
It is a continuation. It's only a reboot in terms of numbering and tone, I guess. So this new God of War they showed gameplay footage. You are Kratos still, so that's good. That's a good place to start.
You're much older.
I don't know about much older. He has a beard, a pretty significant beard. In the original games, he has a goatee.
Yeah.
But now he has got a full-on beard. It's like a James Harden beard. Like it's pretty serious.
Yeah, that's true. It's on fleek.
Still no hair on his head.
That's true. He's shirtless in the wilderness.
Yeah.
In the snow.
Yeah. So anyway, sometime between God of War 3 and this new game, he comes back to life.
And he stitched up his insides.
And he moves from ancient Greece to
Europe.
The Nordic
Yeah.
area because reasons. Anyway, he fathers a child, a son. The mother is presumably no longer alive, and so he's taking care of this kid. And so as the game opens up, he takes his son on his first hunt. He wants the kid to kill their meal. And so he's showing so Kratos has been a father before. We know this from the first games, but we never got to see him interact with his daughter. In God of War 3, Pandora, from Pandora's box, she is a manifestation. She's manifested as a child, and he has, these fatherly attachments for her, but she has sacrificed her life for, I don't even remember why.
To the Flame of Olympus.
Yeah.
That's another story. Don't worry about that.
So we've seen Kratos become attached to his kids. This is a little different because those were both girls, whereas this is a son, so he's going to have different expectations for how he wants
that
his
one.
son to act.
He's a lot more scarred from his experiences.
Literally.
So he loves. You can tell he cares for the child. He doesn't want to openly show it.
Right. So we're seeing this softer side of Kratos.
Yeah.
Like there's a time where the kid takes a shot at the I guess it's a deer.
Yeah, it's a deer
that they're hunting, and the kid basically takes a hasty shot and he misses, and the deer runs off. And for a second, Kratos he gets angry, but he just he's reminds himself to calm down, which is totally contrary to anything.
Yeah, I was very surprised about that
in the other God of War games.
And the thing is, I like that.
See. Okay, let's keep going, and then we'll talk about it. So as things go on, they're continuing their hunt, and then they get ambushed by these, I guess you would call them frost giants.
So they get ambushed by undead warriors, as always, because you got to have that in a God of War game.
Of course.
And then apparently it's a troll that gets attacked.
Are you talking about the giant one or the little ones? So yeah, the troll, the big one, they get attacked. And Kratos manages to fend off the whatever they are. So there's a big troll, and then there's a few smaller enemies. They might be zombies.
I'm sure they're undead enemies.
Yeah.
Like I said, you always have to have them in God of War.
So importantly, Kratos is not using his Blades of Chaos to fight. He's using this axe. It looks like ice imbued powers.
You can tell it has magic powers.
Yeah, because at one point he throws it at an enemy and pins it to a rock. And then he turns around and he beats up on another enemy with his fist, and then he calls it back to him. He pulls
a Thor
hammer. Yeah. And then they go on and they kill the troll, and then at the end of the trailer they hunt down the deer. The kid shoots it, and then they follow it, and then the kid doesn't want to kill it off, and then Kratos guides him into putting the knife into the deer to finish it off. So it was a long trailer. It was almost 10 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was around 8 or 9 minutes, and so there was a lot there to talk about. Not so much gameplay. Partially gameplay wise,
gameplay
but
is
also
different because you can tell the camera angle is different and the way it's positioned. Because usually, it seems much more open world.
Yeah,
and you do get that aspect of God of War, but since it's a sandbox, there's a certain route you need to follow. This one, it seems much more open for you to follow.
Yeah, I agree. It looks that way. Again, we didn't get to see that much because it was this one trailer, but it did seem like there's more to explore than in past games, which were quite linear.
And then combat follows pretty similar to how God of War usually is.
I totally disagree.
Really?
Yeah. To me, what makes it is it's not even Kratos. It's the Blades of Chaos and the way you fight with those weapons. And this axe just seems so much slower, so much more up close because the blades, because they're on the chains, you have a lot of range. And yeah, he has other weapons in the games that are more up close, but when I played, I tended to...
Okay, let's be honest. The other weapons he has, they're on chains for...
No, that's not true.
Most conveniently, they're on chains. Most of the time, yeah.
In God of War 3, they were, but
yeah, the other ones no. But in God of War 3, yeah, like Hercules'
gauntlets.
Yeah, they were these things that were meant to hammer and beat down enemies, and all of a sudden, when Kratos gets them, he can use the chains on them. I mean, I do agree with that, but I feel what I mean is like it keeps the elements of the slashing and hacking part of it.
Yeah.
Obviously, yeah, you're gonna have different combat because with the axe you can't do as much.
Yeah. So again, this seemed to be very, very early on in the game. Who knows if this is going to be the very beginning? I hope we get some sort of explanation as to how he comes back from the dead, even though it's not surprising at all because he dies in. Of the 4 games that I played, he went to Hades in all 4 of those games, and he managed to come back. So. Yeah. We'll see. But, yeah, so this was very early on in the game, so it could be that he gets the Blades of Chaos again later on. I really, really hope he does, because to me, that gameplay is so much fun and is the defining feature of the gameplay for me.
He's hard to see. I don't expect him to come back anytime soon.
It also, I hope they give an explanation as to how he gets them off, because the reason... So when Ares saves Kratos' life and Kratos becomes his, servant or whatever his title is, the blades are binded to his flesh, like they're burned into his arms, like he can't. The chains are, at least the blades he can attach to his back and he can use other weapons, but like the blades are bound to his flesh. So I don't know how.
Yeah, I don't know how they explain it. They come off in God of War 3. But I don't think they ever explained that. Yeah, they come off.
When?
At the very end, when you fight Zeus. At the very, very end of your fight with Zeus.
I did notice that in this new trailer that he had, it looked like rags on his arms, basically covering up where the burn marks would be. So I don't know what that means. It's probably just a little thing to just kind of cover it up. But, I thought that was a nice touch, at least. As far as Kratos' new personality, it is a different tone of different. He's clearly changed a lot in however amount of time it's been since the 3rd game, and that's fine. I liked Kratos the way he was, and so I guess this is their reaction to the fans' criticism of Kratos' personality, and so I'm gonna miss Kratos the way he was, but I'm interested to see how this new Kratos characterization plays out.
For me, it was a very logical sense because at the very end of God of War 3, he says that his vengeance ends now. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't deny the fact that he still has a lot of rage within him. Mm-hmm. He just needs to find another way to live, because most of his life during the events of the God of War games was solely for violence and revenge.
Right.
And now that that's gone from Olympus, he needs to find something else to do with his life.
Yeah.
And I feel like probably, of course, I'm pretty sure he's going to fight the Norse gods.
Right. So you want to talk about that?
Yeah.
Okay. So the original God of War games were based on Greek mythology. So, like where I talked about, he kills Ares, he kills Zeus, he kills every other god on Mount Olympus. So this new game, there's nobody left in Greek mythology to kill. So this new game is going to be about Norse mythology, which is a very interesting change of pace. it's been rumored for a long time, and people have been pretty excited about it. And I'm fairly excited about it. I don't think it's as cool to me personally, just because I know a lot more about Greek mythology than I do about Norse mythology. All I know from Norse mythology is because of the Thor movies, and I have no problem admitting that. But from what I know from Norse mythology, it sounds cool. So, I think we can expect to see a fight against Thor and Odin, probably Loki and Heimdall. Probably he'll cut down Yggdrasil, and questions of time aside, I think it's a cool choice, a very different setting, and there's a lot for them to work with. I don't know if this will be the only game centered around Norse mythology. They could go for another trilogy. Or after this, if they want to do more, there's plenty of other, mythologies they could work with. There's
to kill off.
The what?
And to kill off.
Oh, yeah.
Basically, he goes into the mythologies to kill them.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of Egyptian gods, the Japanese gods.
Basically, how it should have ended is coming true.
Yeah, basically.
All the way until he fights Morgan Freeman.
All right, you want to move on? Okay. Next, let's talk about Injustice 2 some more.
So we finally got gameplay footage.
Gameplay footage, quote unquote. Most of what we saw was super moves and
there's actually gameplay footage. We just didn't watch
a very little bit. Oh yeah.
Yeah, we didn't watch the 15-minute video.
Yeah, we just watched the sizzle reel basically.
Yeah, which actually came out the day after we did our last podcast, which I was like, of course this would happen.
Oh well. So we saw more. So it was technically the first showing of Atrocitus and Grodd
and Supergirl.
A little bit of Supergirl game. Well, she was in the first trailer, but some of her fighting styles or fighting moves we saw in this new video. So you want to talk about her first, I guess?
Yeah. She fought in how I expected her to fight.
Yeah, so basically a faster version of Superman, I guess.
She has abilities that he doesn't, it would seem.
Yep.
That's really about it. I mean, she would play pretty much similar to how we expect Superman to play.
Yep.
Which isn't a bad thing. Superman, obviously, he's a pretty versatile character in Injustice. So I always expect the same thing from Supergirl as well.
Yeah. And then Grodd, we didn't see too much of his actual gameplay. He was, doing some mind control-y kind of things.
Yeah, so you can expect him to have both melee attacks and powers at the same time, which I really liked.
Yeah.
We saw a lot of Atrocitus.
Yeah, which was awesome. He had this one move. I'm guessing it's going to be his grab, but basically he pins the opponent down on the ground, and then the Red Lanterns, because of their whole rage thing, they have this thing where they just have to puke out blood all of the time, right? It's blood, right?
It's like energized blood.
Yeah.
Like that.
And so he pins the opponent down on the ground. He just spews blood all over their face, and it was gross and awesome. And then we also saw part of his super move where he throws an opponent up against a rock, and then he makes this construct of this giant, it looked like a boar, some sort of space boar thing, and it just rammed him down. So yeah,
I mean, so far it looks good.
Yeah,
I mean, it doesn't change too much of the mechanics of the first game.
Right,
you can see it's a little bit more stylized.
Yeah, so we know level transitions are going to come back. We saw some of those in the game. They looked fine. I
was very upset about one, though.
Yeah, let's talk
okay, I found out about... Okay, there was this came out on Facebook. There was one article that said Black Manta was playable in the game, and I was very excited about that.
Yeah, when I first saw that, I saw Black Manta for that brief second. I was like, oh, that was a reveal of Black Manta is going to be in the game.
And then I saw some other videos, and it turns out Black Manta is a transition character, which means...
Right, okay, let's pause.
Okay.
Oh, you were about to explain it?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So, transitions in the game, just like how Alex talked about, you can interact with the environment. If you interact with the environment enough and you do a certain combo or a hit, you can actually go further into the environment and you fly somewhere else. Basically, if you're a person getting hit, you'll interact with the environment, you'll hit something, and there might be a character there that continues your transition cinematic. And I know in the first one, in Arkham Asylum, it was the inmates that cooperated with the transition. So you got attacked by Joker, Killer Croc. What? Not Joker?
Penguin.
I said Joker. Penguin, Killer Croc. And then you can see some other ones.
There was another one in Arkham Asylum. Scarecrow was in the other end of the level transition. There was another one outside the Hall of Justice with Darkseid.
Yeah.
I think those are the only characters that I can think of, at least.
So when I found out Black Manta is just a transition character, I was just like, great. Just crushed my hopes.
That was pretty disappointing. Because I think you could do a lot of interesting things with this character.
Yeah, I mean, he has his suit, and then he's actually a really good combat expert in the comics as well. So you really missed out on this one.
Yeah. So we saw a few level transitions. They're going pretty fast, so I couldn't really tell what levels they were supposed to be, but they looked fine. And then we saw a few snippets of some super moves. So, like I said, we saw a bit of Atrocity's super move. We saw part of Supergirl's super move, part of Superman's super move, part of Batman's super move. I think that was it.
That was it. Well, Aquaman, I think.
Oh, yeah, and Aquaman.
End,
yeah. So one of the brief bits of actual gameplay we saw was Aquaman uses this new move where he uses his sea creature communication this little puddle appears and these giant squid or octopus tentacles come and grab the opponent and they just throw them around somewhere. So that's a new move. Another thing I want to talk about was Aquaman's design. It's very, very different from what was in the first game, both for Earth,
Primary Earth and
Earth 2.
Yeah.
However you want to call them. So that's interesting. Are we going to see an Earth 3? That would be weird, I think.
Earth 3 confirmed.
So, I mean, who knows? I certainly don't know. As far as how his character design looks, I'm not a huge fan. I really like the way his character
I'm okay with it. I mean, it's fine. I do like the one in the first one better.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was all that was in that video. Now, I read a few other articles one video with the director, or I don't know what his title is, Ed Boon, who is the creator of Mortal Kombat and Injustice. And so he was giving some more explanation about the armor and stuff that we saw shown off mostly in the first trailer and a little bit more in the second trailer. So the armor is not going to change during battle, which is what I thought based on the first trailer because, the way they were armoring up as the battle went on. So the way it works is basically after every battle, you'll get these armor drops. And so you can customize your character to, mix and match the armor based on your fighting style because they'll have different stats and stuff. That's fine. It's the most recent Super Smash Bros. Games kind of had the same deal with the equipment drops. And, those are okay. They're a good way to kind of tailor your character to be, more offensive or defensive or speedy, kind of based on the way you like to play.
I feel I feel the same way too. It's just bringing more RPG elements into.
Yeah, and it was fine for me at first, but later on, as I got more and more equipment, it just became a pain in the ass to go through every character and say, well, what's the optimum build for this one? And it was just annoying. And
I agree with that. Yeah,
I think this would probably only be a big deal in online play, which I won't get into even if I even play this game since I don't have a PS4.
Time to start saving up.
No, now that God of War 4 or the new God of War is going to come out and this, I'm definitely going to have to get a PS4.
Well, so. I mean, you are getting married, so.
Yeah.
Don't look at me.
Put that on the registry.
Yeah, on the registry. You see, you only get one gift and it's from the groomsmen. We all have to pitch in to get this. But it's your bachelor party.
Yeah. Anyway.
Alcohol and God of War.
Sounds perfect to me. Anyway.
Actually, that sounds pretty good, actually.
What were we talking about?
Before PS4.
Oh yeah, the armor and stuff. So, to me, I probably won't mess around with it.
Yeah, I know a lot of times it's there if you're into it. I'm honestly not. If I don't play RPGs that much,
Mm-hmm.
and when I did, I mean, it was fine because you put the investment and time into that character.
Right.
But with this one, unless you, like you said, you're playing online, it's not really a point. Like fighting games, a lot of times I just play with my friends if they come over
Mm-hmm.
and they don't feel like playing, a shooting game or a campaign game.
Right.
Play a fighting game.
Yeah.
And I don't want to sit there for like an hour and customize their character
Right.
and be like, okay, I'm gonna put this on, put this on, put this on. I'm gonna give him this kind of belt buckle. I'm gonna give him this hat. I'm gonna give him this, and we give him that. Now we can fight. At that point, it's just like no.
Right.
Like you remember during your birthday when you put on Injustice and everybody went into it.
Yeah.
And they didn't care about stats. They just wanted to beat the crap out of each other.
That's where the fun is.
Yeah. I was doing good that day. I had 3 wins consecutively, and then I got beaten out. And I would have won more, but then I had to play that.
Or a few meddling kids. And
Yeah, I know. But I think that's all we have to say for Injustice.
No, that's not true.
That's not true?
Just a couple more things.
Okay.
So they were interviewing Ed Boon. Like I said,
I like his name.
Yeah, his Twitter handle is his name backwards, so it's Noob DE. I don't know. It's
Noob?
funny. Yeah. Well, not really, because it's DE, not ED. Anyway, so they asked him about guest characters, and he said they're open to it. Well, they asked him about DLC and guest characters. So his explanation was, in the first Injustice game, there were 6 DLC characters, and then in Mortal Kombat X, there were 8 DLC characters, plus 4 more in Mortal Kombat XL. And so he's said that he expects Injustice 2 to have even more DLC characters than that. So that's a really good sign. And then he said, when they asked him about guest characters, he said that Scorpion was the most downloaded DLC character in Injustice because he speculated because of the novelty of having Scorpion in that universe. And so he said I don't remember his exact quote, but he said they are hoping to include more guest characters in there.
That makes me happy then.
Me too.
That means because you have so many characters to choose from.
Definitely.
And now you can broaden the roster.
Yeah. And then the last thing was that he was talking about alternate costumes. So in the last Injustice game, they had Man of Steel costumes, for example. So like you could play as the General Zod from Man of Steel. They had some other, like there was one of Arrow from the TV show. Like they had Stephen Amell like do the voice and everything. There was a John Stewart Green Lantern, so they went pretty in depth with a
and they
lot
got
of
Phil
them.
Lamar to actually voice,
Yep.
John Stewart.
Yep. So they asked him about that, and he said basically you can expect to see like Batman vs Superman, Wonder Woman style skin, something.
You know
like
what I
that,
want?
so.
Batman Brave and the Bold costume.
Oh, that would be awesome.
It's like face the hammer of justice.
Okay, so that's it for Injustice 2.
It's like big old animated figures fighting each other.
Next, let's talk about Crash Bandicoot.
Okay.
So, not much to say on this one, but they announced during Sony's press conference that Crash 1, 2, and 3, those aren't the actual names, but I don't remember them off the top of my head, but the first 3 Crash games developed by Naughty Dog are being rebuilt from the ground up. So, I never beat any of the Crash games, but my cousin had them and he liked them, or my cousin had them, and so I played a bit of them and they were super fun. Like I always liked to play them and watch him play them. They were super tough platformers, but they were.
It's really fun.
Yeah, they were a blast. So when I get my PS4, I'll definitely have to get that collection. So next game is the new Spider-Man game. So I've talked about a Spider-Man game a pretty decent amount on this show. So I have a somewhat unique perspective or unique take on what they've shown now. So I'll let Brandon go ahead and go first, say what he thought about it.
So for this one, it was very visually appealing. I will give it that. And you could see that Spider-Man, now I don't know if this is just gameplay or if they stylized this for the trailer, but he has a pretty good amount of flexibility in the game. Now, one thing I can tell from it, it seems that they've mixed the cinematics and the gameplay together, so they transition much more smoothly. And I feel I wouldn't be surprised if there were quick time events with some of these things. Of course, you got the swing. This is in Spider-Man 2 when he loses his power to swing. I'm not entirely sure because we didn't see live gameplay. This is just from the trailer. So far, it's piqued my interest because, like I said, I forget which episode, but of most Marvel superheroes, Spider-Man is probably the most successful one because you have a certain formula that you follow. You have the open world. You have his ability to swing and explore very easily. So you have all that at your disposal. Plus, you have the city of New York, which is going to be huge. Now, gameplay and combat. So far, it seems like what you expect. He shoots his enemies with webbing. He can take them down from high heights. He can, attach his web to an object and swing him at his opponents. Something that really interested me was I was making a joke, is his parkour in a building. It shows him not just running and leaping off buildings. He's running, he's jumping off walls, he's doing things to keep going. He doesn't stop. So I thought that was a really good aspect. It, of course, like with games such as Assassin's Creed and what's the other game I'm thinking about? The one with Nathan Drake, Uncharted. You have his constant quick time, moves and free running abilities. So all that is good. Now, again, I didn't see actual live gameplay, so I don't know too much about it. But for the most part, I'm pretty optimistic about this game. I'm optimistic with most things, so I like to give things the benefit of the doubt. So that's where I'm at so far with this trailer.
So for me, when I was watching this trailer, I noticed a lot of the DNA of the Amazing Spider-Man game. And that's really promising to me because, like I've said a lot before, I enjoyed the Amazing Spider-Man game that I played. Not that it wasn't without its flaws, but overall, there were a lot of things that I really, really liked about it. And so seeing a lot more of the same, I think, is really cool and really interesting to me. And so I'm excited to see how this game plays out. Now, Brandon said he thought it looked open world, and I didn't see that so much. Not to say that it won't be, and I hope it will be, because that was one of the things that I liked about the other game so much. But yeah, not much to say about it. It looks really cool, really flashy, really visually appealing, and that's awesome. Another PS4 exclusive, so just adding on to the reasons to get a PS4. Okay, now we're going to talk about the Telltale Batman game. So Telltale is a pretty interesting studio. So they specialize in doing licensed games, which means they take established franchises or properties and they make episodic games out of them. So, for example, they've done a Game of Thrones game. They've done The Walking Dead. They've done Back to the Future, Jurassic Park.
They have?
Yeah, those are older. Yeah.
I know they've also done another one, which is called The Wolf Among Us.
Yeah.
That one was, I think, more...
That is original.
Yeah, that's their own original thing.
Yeah.
Have you played Telltale games before?
Mm-hmm. Never played one.
I played a little. I haven't finished them. They are very fun.
Yeah.
A lot of what you do is... It's a choice-based game. They're all choice-based games. Mm-hmm. So basically what you do determines how the game is going to, proceed.
Right.
And that's pretty much the defining feature. And that's what you can expect a lot of times from, the games. So I won't expect to do anything like combat waves. So don't expect to do combos or anything like that.
So very light on the actual gameplay and movement and stuff like that.
There are quick time events which happen, which of course it also affects with the gameplay.
Right.
Now, how it plays with Batman game, that's new because we're getting off of the Arkham series, which was very, very heavy into combat and movement and everything. Yeah. But I'm actually very happy with that Telltale picked up a Batman game. I feel like this is going to be more of... I don't know if this would come from this, but I would like to see a more detective side of Batman. Mm-hmm. We really, really got that in the Arkham games, which I'm very happy about. Mm-hmm. But I feel this is a chance to go even further.
Yeah. So I think that Batman is a really good series, a comic book series that lends itself to the choices that Telltale is known for.
And they're all very dark.
Yeah.
Very dark, very graphic.
Because if you think about a movie like The Dark Knight, where he has that choice of, spoilers, whether to save Rachel or whether to save Harvey.
Where is she?
So something like that, that lends itself so well to a Telltale game. Now, obviously they're going to do something new and unique with a Batman story, but yeah, I think there are a lot of really tough choices that Batman, really any superhero, has to make, but I feel like Batman, because of the character that he is, I think that lends itself to that kind of storytelling.
Yeah, I know people were complaining like, oh, another Batman game. And I understand that, I really do. But given Telltale's pedigree and what they've done so far with both Game of Thrones and Walking Dead in the past years, I'm very excited to see where they're coming with this.
Yeah.
The design work always is a crowd pleaser.
Yep.
So I'm on for it.
Yep. Okay, so we got 2 more games to talk about. So second to last, penultimate game is, you guessed it, for another week in a row, Pokemon Sun and Moon. So there were actually 2 new Pokemon announced last week that we forgot to talk about, or I forgot to talk about. I'll take the blame for that one. During Nintendo's E3 Treehouse press conference thing, there were 3 more new Pokemon introduced. So we'll go ahead and start with the ones from last week. So these first 2, they came from this leak of this Japanese magazine called CoroCoro. So we don't have official English translations or anything yet. So the first one is called Nekawala. So it looks like a koala. It's a normal type, and it has a new ability called Deep Sleep, or at least that's the translation that we have for right now. And so Deep Sleep is a pretty interesting ability. It prevents the user from being inflicted with any status other than the sleep condition, which is pretty cool. So there are a lot of abilities like that in the games, sort of. So there's an ability called Limber, which prevents you from being paralyzed. There's an ability called Water Veil that prevents you from being burned. There's an ability called Immunity that prevents you from being poisoned. And then I believe the ability Flame Body prevents you from being frozen. And so this new ability, Deep Sleep, basically rolls all of those abilities into one, so that you can only be affected by one status condition, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it sounds like my type of ability.
Anyway, and then the next Pokemon is called Iwanko, and it is a rock-type Pokemon. It looks like a little puppy, or a pupper. You're clearly not on me IRL enough. Anyway, and it has the abilities Keen Eye and Vital Spirit. Keen Eye prevents your accuracy from being lowered, and Vital Spirit means that you cannot be inflicted with the sleep status. And so then the 3 Pokemon in the E3 Treehouse stream. So the first one was called Pikipek. And it is a woodpecker Pokemon. And it has either the ability Keen Eye or Skill Link. Keen Eye, again, prevents your Pokemon's accuracy from being lowered. And then Skill Link is a pretty interesting ability where if a move has the chance to hit more than once. So there are a number of moves that basically they will hit either for between 2 to 5 times. So there's like Pin Missile and Fury Attack and a few others like that. And so what Skill Link does is that it ensures that all of those moves will hit 5 times every time. So Pikipek looks to be the early on flying type Pokemon of the game. So your Pidgey, Hoot Hoot, Talo, Starly, Pidove, and Fletchling are all flying type Pokemon that you catch very early on in the game. So this one seems to keep in that vein. So we can expect to see at least one more evolution, most likely two. So that's cool. Then the next one they showed off is called Yungoos. It was a plain normal type Pokemon, and it has either the ability Stakeout or Strong Jaw. Stakeout is a new ability which has a pretty interesting effect. And what this Pokemon moves deal twice as much damage when the opposing Pokemon switches in or enters the field mid-battle. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, I feel like it has a lot of use competitively. And now I'll let Brandon say what he's been dying to say since I started talking about this thing.
It looks like Donald Trump. I don't see it, but the internet has been saying it looks like Donald Trump.
It bears a tiny resemblance.
Yeah, I don't really agree with it, but I can see what it's saying now. And I don't know. I had to bite my tongue a lot when you were talking about it to make Donald Trump jokes.
Oh, please go ahead.
Because I'm an adult, and I refuse to play petty games with people in politics because it's a stupid game.
Okay, Frank Underwood.
Okay, dang it! I was gonna say a quote by him. I don't know enough quotes by him to say it. Dang it.
Okay, and then the third Pokemon that was introduced was the Pokemon Grubbin, who is a bug-type Pokemon with the ability Swarm, and that's pretty much all we have to say about it. It will definitely evolve more, so we'll see how that goes.
Grubbin shoving.
Yep. And then the last thing they showed off in this new trailer was the Pokemon Magearna, who will be in the new game. And they showed off its ability, which is called Soul Heart, which is a really interesting a really interesting ability. And so there's Magearna's ability, Soul Heart, makes it so that every time a Pokemon on the field faints, Magearna's special attack increases by one stage. So there's another ability in the game called Moxie, which is similar. It makes it so that a Pokemon with that ability, if it knocks out another Pokemon, its attack raises by one stage. But this is different because it doesn't have to be from the Pokemon using a move to knock out the opposing Pokemon. So for example, if your Pokemon has Moxie, but the Pokemon dies from, say, poison, you won't get the Moxie boost. But in Magearna's case with Soul Heart, it will still get the boost no matter how the Pokemon faints. And when they showed it off in the trailer, it also applies to your allies in a double or triple or whatever battle. So that's pretty interesting and seems like it could get really powerful really quickly. And it also has a new move called... Well, this article that I'm reading doesn't say what the move is called, but it has the word fleur in it, so the French word for flower, which is weird because, okay, real quick side note. So the sixth generation of Pokemon games, X and Y, were set in the region called Kalos, the Kalos region, which is based on France. But the 7th generation is called the Aloha region, which is supposed to be based on Hawaii. So why they're giving it this French name when we're not in the French region anymore doesn't make any sense to me, but whatever.
It's okay, Alex. It's okay.
So yeah, Fleur Cannon, it's going to be a fairy-type move almost certainly. The Magearna use it on a Pangoro, which is fighting and dark, which is ×4 weak to fairy, so it's... And Magearna's part fairy, so I will eat my hat if this is not a fairy type move. And yeah,
I'm gonna hold you to that.
Okay. And they showed off a new battle type, a battle mode called Battle Royal. Not Battle Royale. They left the E off of it, at least in the trailer. Maybe they'll fix it in the final build of the game. But Battle Royal, which is basically a free-for-all battle.
between 4 Pokemon.
Yeah. So we'll learn more about that as it goes, but that's, fine. People have been doing free-for-all battles for a while now. It's not a new invention. It was a fan-created thing, and I guess Pokemon is their Game Freak decided, let's throw this in the game. So, yeah. There's your weekly fix of Pokemon news. Hope you enjoyed it. Okay, and then the last game we have to talk about is my favorite game of the show, IGN's favorite game of the show, a lot of people's favorite game of the show, and that is The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. So we were given an official subtitle for this game. This game was announced at E3 in 2014, and it was supposed to come out in 2015, but then it was delayed to 2016, and then it actually got delayed to 2017. But I'm not salty. Are you salty?
Always. Sorry. But I know how much you love Zelda, so please. I'm
a huge Zelda fan. If I had to start talking about all the Zelda stuff that I own, I wouldn't even know where to start.
If you had to you had to play an instrument in high school, you probably would play the ocarina.
I played trumpet in middle school.
Oh, and you're halfway there.
Sure. I have an ocarina.
Yeah, I think
it's a plastic one. Yeah. I never learned how to play it, but I have it. Anyway, so we were given this official subtitle. People have been calling it Zelda Wii U for a long time, and now we can call it Breath of the Wild. I'm not a huge fan of it. It doesn't tell me anything about the game, unlike, say, Skyward Sword. That told me that I was going to have a sword and I was going to point it skyward. Twilight Princess told me that there was going to be a princess and that she was going to be from the Twilight. Wind Waker told me that I was going to be able to wake the winds, and so on and so forth. This doesn't tell me anything, so it's fine. It's a little longer than most of the other subtitles. Let's see. A Link to the Past, that one's... what? That one's 5 words. Oracle of Seasons, that's 3 words. Oracle of Ages is 3 words.
And this one's called Breath of the Wild, right?
Yeah.
That's 4 words.
Yeah, I know.
So it's like...
Yeah, but A is 1 word and 2 is 2... Or one letter, 2 is 2 letters. Breath of the Wild... I don't know what I'm trying to say.
We had this exact talk with Injustice.
Yep, we did. Anyway, Nintendo showed off a lot. They streamed this game for hours on end, and I was at work, so I didn't get to watch any of it. So all that I know is from this one trailer that we're going to talk about, and then what I read on Twitter from other people and a couple podcasts. So this Zelda looks to be very different. So we've known for a long time that it's going to be open world. The closest we've gotten to open world before this was Wind Waker, which I would argue was a very open world. Have you ever played Wind Waker?
No, I haven't.
So if you don't know what Wind Waker is, you are Toon Link and you are sailing around the ocean, or it's a sea. It's not an ocean. And I didn't want to have to come back and correct it later, okay? So you're sailing around, and that's kind of the main thing of the game is you have this boat and you have a sail and you have this magical baton which allows you to control the wind and point it in different directions and do a few other different things. This world, this version of Hyrule, eclipses the world of Wind Waker to a stupid amount. This world looks to be gigantic with tons and tons of different environments and regions to play in and explore, and it just looks enormous and vast and time-consuming, and I can't wait to jump into that world and never leave ever again. Goodbye, everyone. It was nice knowing some of you. If it wasn't nice knowing you, I hope you know who you are.
Thanks, Alex.
I was obviously not talking about you.
Bull crap.
I sit here with you for 3 hours every week.
Doesn't mean you like it.
No.
Oh!
I'm not saying I don't like it. Screw you. Anyway, so huge open world, looks gorgeous. The graphics, look super
clean and clear.
And this was the Wii U version of the game. This isn't even the NX version, which theoretically is going to look even better or run smoother, most likely.
See, a lot of times I don't believe that. I believe them that it does, but maybe my eyes entrained to see. So it just like it doesn't process with me. If the game by itself looks good, I don't care. It looks amazing, and seeing from this footage, what I saw on the trailer, it looks amazing.
It definitely looks amazing. So I'm not going to talk too much about every little scene in the trailer. You know, I'm not going to give you a frame by frame breakdown of everything. There's some cool stuff they show, like there's one part where you push these boulders down onto these enemies below, which kind of gives you a sense of how you can interact with the environment in the game. You do some cooking, you do some hang gliding, just, you know, showing off a few of the little mechanics in the game. You have this thing, and I forget what it's called, but it's like this iPad, basically, that you use to control a lot of things, and your special weapons or special items they're going to pop out of it. So, like, you have this magnet item that will pop out of the pad, and you can use it to levitate magnetic objects and move them around, and use that in combat, you know, to hit enemies, or you can use it to solve puzzles and stuff. So that's interesting. Yeah, so a lot of really cool things. The main thing that I want to talk about is my take on where this game is going to be placed in the Zelda timeline.
Because you can obviously how Link is. He doesn't have his classic costume or his gear.
Right. Okay,
go for it.
Let me try to give a very basic breakdown of the Legend of Zelda timeline. So, before I came over here to record this episode, I dusted off my trusty copy of Hyrule Historia to give myself a refresher course. So, there are 4 parts to the Zelda timeline. So, there's the first part in one linear timeline where things happen, basically. And then, after the events of The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, the timeline splits into 3. So there's one timeline where the hero does not defeat Ganondorf, and the land is plunged into darkness, basically. And the second timeline... basically. And the second timeline is... Okay, so actually I guess I have to give an explanation of how Ocarina of Time works. So, Ocarina of Time, you start off as a young Link, and Zelda comes to you and says, this Ganondorf guy is a bad dude, and we need the Master Sword to stop him. So, you manage to unlock the Temple of Time, you get the Master Sword, and doing so freezes you in time for 7 years, and you go into the future where Ganondorf, in the meantime, since there was no one to stop him, has taken over, and everything is in ruins, basically. And so in the game, in Ocarina of Time, you go back and forth between young Link and adult Link, which is a span of 7 years, and then eventually, as adult Link, you defeat Ganondorf. Or Ganon, actually. And so then after that, Zelda sends you back in time to relive your childhood. And so that's when the timeline splits again. So there's one as child Link, your young Link, when he's in that timeline, and then the other timeline is a continuation of Ocarina of Time where adult Link has gone back and he's no longer in that timeline until he's reincarnated later on in the other games. So I know it's really confusing. If that doesn't make any sense to you and you need a better visual representation, just Google Zelda timeline and I'm sure you'll find an image, and that can probably help explain more. Or ask me and I'll let you borrow my copy of Hyrule Historia, which is a very interesting book. But my prediction. So I think there are 2 possible theories here. So one is that it's the very first game in the timeline. So the first game in the timeline currently is The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, which was the most recent 3D Zelda for the home console, which was released in 2011 for the Nintendo Wii system to great critical acclaim. One of my favorite Zelda games. Really, really fun. I enjoyed it a lot. Not perfect, but it's really good. So my thinking behind this, why it's the first game, is because, as Brandon said, it's because Link, as we have seen so far, does not have his traditional green tunic. Now, one of the mechanics in the game that they showed off a little bit in the trailer, but got more into in the Treehouse stream, was that you are going to be upgrading and changing your clothing a lot throughout the game. Kind of like Injustice, you'll find stuff in these shrines, they're called, like they're mini dungeons. You'll find
dungeon.
You'll find new things to wear which have different stats. Like there's heat resisting clothes and cold resisting clothes and more damage and like I think like more speeds, stuff like that. So they're putting a lot of emphasis on changing clothes. So I could see a scenario where if this is the first game in the timeline, you're changing clothes all throughout, and then right before the final battle, you get the hero's tunic, the hero's clothes, the traditional green that Link is most commonly associated with wearing, and you defeat whoever the bad guy is, whoever it should be. You defeat him or her wearing the hero's clothes, and that goes on from there. Or that's how Link comes to wear the green tunic and such. Now, I don't think that's going to be it, because Skyward Sword came out on the 25th anniversary of Zelda, and they put a huge emphasis on that, about how they were going back to the beginning, back to the roots of Zelda. That was going to be the first game in the timeline, yada, yada, yada. Like, they made a huge deal about it. And so because that was the most recent new home console game, I don't think they're going to say, this is the new first game in the timeline. My personal theory, as of right now, is that this game is going to be set before the events of Twilight Princess. So that is in the timeline where the hero beats Ganon in Ocarina of Time, and then goes back into the child timeline. So the middle timeline of the three. The reason I think that is because it makes sense based on the aesthetics that we've seen so far. So the Twilight Princess game, there was this big Gerudo desert area. That was a big part of the game, and we saw a huge desert area in this game, or in this trailer for Breath of the Wild. And there was another really important area called the Bridge of Eldin, which there was a level stage based on that in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. That was a big part of the game, and we saw a area that looked very, very similar to that in this new trailer. So based on those two things, based on the art style as well, I think that Breath of the Wild will take place before Twilight Princess, because the game looks a lot brighter and more open, and so I think in the time between this game and Twilight Princess, things will have become darker and more closed off. I think that would make a lot of sense story-wise. Another reason I think that this will be related to Twilight Princess in the same Twilight Princess storyline or timeline is because Twilight Princess was the most recent Zelda game released because of Twilight Princess HD. And another thing I forgot to mention is they showed off in the stream that, so in the Twilight Princess HD bundle came with this amiibo of Wolf Link with Midna riding on his back, and so they showed off that if you scan this amiibo into the game, that Wolf Link will appear in the game and fight with you as your companion. So a really cool amiibo functionality. So they're tying Twilight Princess in a lot with this game. It's the game immediately following Twilight Princess HD's release, so I think that there's a lot of connection there. and they were already working with that world when they were remastering Twilight Princess. So I just think it makes a lot of sense for them to do that. Another reason I think that it will be this timeline is because the other two so the first timeline where the hero is defeated at the hands of Ganon, there are 5 games in that timeline. The other two timelines where the hero is victorious, there are only 3 games in that timeline. And before the split timeline, I don't remember how many games there were. There was at least 3, maybe more. I can't remember off the top of my head. So that is my official prediction, is it's going to be before Twilight Princess. I have spoken a lot. That went on for a long time. Have you anything to contribute?
One thing that I really, really did like is how the title harkens to the wild thing. Mm-hmm. So you really see him interacting with the environment. I feel like this is going to be a very environmental heavy game.
Yeah, definitely.
Because this is before he I can't make any real assumptions about the game itself, but you could see that he needs to rely on himself from what we've seen. Mm-hmm. So he's going to have interactions with, different animals and characters and whatnot, but I feel like for the most part it's going to be by himself. And that's kind of the feel like I from the trailer, a very lonely feel. It's a very peaceful feel, but it's a very lonely feel as well.
Yeah.
So until you progress further into the game, it's going to be it's a lot of what Alex touched upon, him focusing on himself and building him to be the hero that he has to be at the end. Now, all the other ones with the alternate timelines and whatnot, not even going to touch that. Because I didn't realize we were talking about, Marvel and DC and all that stuff.
Hey, I spared you from talking about the Mario timeline last week.
Oh God, yes.
So, you want to talk about that?
Let's not.
Okay, I'll save it for another episode.
I don't know if the viewer can listen to a 4-hour podcast.
One day we'll make them. But that is all we have for our E3 coverage. Before the shows started, before E3 started, I wasn't really looking forward to it. I didn't think there was going to be that much that was going to happen, because most of my excitement in previous years has come from Nintendo's press conference / their digital event they've been doing for the last few years.
Yeah.
When they said they weren't going to do it this year, I was really deflated. I was like, oh, well, I don't care. Like, there's not going to be anything to excite me. I was definitely wrong. Sony had a really strong showing, I thought. And
I did a great job.
And Nintendo, all of the Zelda stuff just makes me so hyped.
You know what I was surprised though? No Assassin's Creed.
Yep. Yeah, they confirmed that they are taking a year off Well, I forget if they said they're taking a year off this year or if they're switching to a 2-year development cycle going forward. I'm not
Which
sure.
I have no problem with.
Yeah, me neither.
I mean, I'm one of the few people that like having yearly Assassin's Creed games, but if it means taking longer to make a better game, go for it.
Yeah.
I have no problem with that. Not like I'm going to play it because I don't have the system, but, I like to see how a game is made and what's going on with it.
Mm-hmm. So that's it for our E3 coverage. Hopefully you enjoyed it. And once again, for the, I believe, 3rd week in a row, we do not have any listener emails, and my sadness just continues to grow. So, we'll take a moment of silence. And we will move into our Kevin segment, Fan Fic Fights. And this week we're going to do something a little different, because this one was suggested by Brandon himself. So it's not going to be a surprise for him, as it is usually. And this is not going to be a battle of strength or combat, but a battle of wealth. Because this week we have Mr. Monty Burns from The Simpsons versus Scrooge McDuck from the classic cartoon DuckTales.
Excellent.
So, shall we rock, paper, scissors?
I want to say yes, but I don't know too much about Scrooge McDuck.
Okay, that's fine. I was going to pick Scrooge anyway.
Okay. So, who shall go first today? No, I went first last time.
No, oh, you're right.
You go first.
Okay, me go first.
Oh, by the way, there's another correction I have to do.
Oh, yeah.
Last week when we did the Kevin segment, we said that the Mark 43 armor that he had in Civil War was that armor. That's wrong. 43 was the one he had in the opening of Age of Ultron. It was basically like the armor he had in Iron Man 3, just more red. The one he had in Civil War, that's a Mark 46. So I meant to talk about the Mark 46 armor. My bad.
Okay, so Scrooge McDuck is... Well, hold on. Actually, before we get started, we need to discuss terms of victory, I guess.
Okay.
So how are we going to say or give the listeners a metric to judge who won this fight?
Just say who's more wealthy.
Well, that's not really... How are we going to describe that?
We just list about all... Just go for it. Just go for it. Talk about how wealthy they are.
All right, fine. Okay, so Scrooge McDuck is a duck of Scottish ancestry.
Oh, he's Scottish, that's right. I thought he was English for some reason.
No, he's definitely Scottish. And so he is a very elderly and miserly man. He is known for being stingy to the umpteenth degree. And so the reason he does that is in order to protect his wealth, because he has a quote in the show where, I don't remember the exact quote, but he says, you know, the reason I stay so rich is because I don't spend money on the things that I don't need, something like that. And so that is really true, because you see anytime he has the opportunity to save money or gain more money, he will take that chance. So
sounds like my kind of man. Or my kind of duck.
So he goes on these treasure hunting expeditions all the time to find lost treasure, like Benjamin Franklin Gates, or to find these legendary, you know, artifacts that will help him make more money or find more money or things like that. And he does all of this in the pursuit of filling up his money bin as much as possible. So the money bin is this giant structure that he constructed specifically for the purpose of holding all of his coins. The money bin is located on the top of a hill several miles away from his mansion. Why he chose to build it so far away, where it could easily be broken into by thieves such as the Beagle Boys, not in his backyard, I don't know. That would be a question for him, not for me. Regardless, he has this giant structure called the money bin, and I know that there's an approximate volume given to the money bin, and I don't know what it is, but it's in cubic acres. So, I mean, this thing is enormous, and he has it filled with gold coins and jewels and stuff. And so something that you'll see him do in the cartoon a lot is he likes to go swimming in the gold. It's a pretty iconic image of him. Like he'll jump off of a diving board into the gold and like swim around in it like it was water. And there's this one episode where somebody steals like literally one coin from him, and he's like, he has this like sixth sense of where he jumps into the money bin gold and he swims around it for a second. He's like, I knew it. I'm missing like however much money, like down to the like cent. There should be this much money in it.
So he's basically Smaug.
Sure.
That's basically the premise of The Hobbit, when he finds out that he's missing a piece of treasure. And he goes after. That's why he attacks the town.
Yeah, so there's another episode. So Scrooge has this arch rival, another Scottish duck, and I don't remember what his name is, but they're both competing to see who's the richest duck in the world. And so they decide to have a contest, and so they decide to transport all of their wealth to this remote, like, Egyptian, like, desert. Because I forget what happens. There's, like, this god who will only, like, grant a wish to whoever is richest or something. I don't remember. It was weird, but they both transport all of their wealth, and Scrooge wins. and basically you just see everything that he owns right there in one enormous pile. And yeah, so he's a super, super wealthy dude.
Now, that is a very convincing argument.
I try.
I am going to make the case for Charles Montgomery Burns.
Interesting.
Now, Charles Montgomery Burns has been around for a very, very long time. That's one of the big recurring jokes in The Simpsons, is how old he is. He's so old that when he tried to pierce his finger and donate blood, all that came up was dust and air. Now, being around for such a long time has given him plenty of time and energy to accumulate his wealth. In fact, he has been listed by Forbes magazine as one of the top richest people of all time. Granted, it was fictional, but you know. And he came in at about 8.6 billion, but that was all that they could, you know, count from certain episodes, because it fluctuates constantly. Just like Scrooge, he has a secret bank, but he has multiple secret banks as well. Some in his house, some offshore. I think there was one actually underneath the power plant. And his list of assets are humongous. He owns countless mansions, humongous estates. He has enough money to block out the sun. In fact, you want to know how much influence over money he has? The eye on the $1 bill is his eye. That is how influential he is over money itself. And just every time you see him, when he makes an appearance, it has to do something about with money. I remember, like, he made a gamble. It was a small gamble with a rival. It was for about, I want to say, anywhere for $4 to $6 million. And that was a petty gamble on his part. So if that doesn't scream filthy rich, I don't know what that screams about. Now, he has lost his wealth certain times, mostly because he's done something dumb or he's made too big of a bet. So he loses his money, but he always manages to find a way to get it back, and bigger than ever. So with Mr. Burns, never make it a contest about wealth, because he's always going to win.
Well, there you have it. Those are our two contestants, and now we need you to let us know who you thought won. Seriously, let us know. We haven't gotten an email about who won a fight in a really long time. So, Bruno, you're the only one I can count on. We need you to write in.
Susie?
Well, Susie's never told us about a
Oh, yeah, fight. That's true. Actually, no, I'm taking this time right now. Kenzie, you always claim to be a big supporter and fan of the show. Send us an email, for Lord's sake. I brought in the big man for this, yeah.
Anyway, before we get out of here, it is Brandon's week to pick the movie that we're all going to watch and then talk about in a couple weeks. And he is going to tell us what that movie is right now.
That is right. And I am going to pick a movie that Alex and I have both seen, actually. Whiplash. I said it last week. I was very happy that you saw the movie, and I want to talk about it on the podcast.
All right. Definitely a really good movie. I highly recommend it. It's intense. So if you're like half asleep, don't watch it. Like, you want to be like fully awake. And
I don't think that's an issue. This movie's gonna snap you awake.
True.
You gotta keep it on tempo.
So let's say 2 weeks.
2 weeks
come
sounds
back,
good.
Watch
That's
it.
right.
Even though we both watched it, so we could probably make it 1 week. But for the sake of the viewer, we will make it 2 weeks. Or not viewer, listener. You know what I mean. Anyway, this was a podcast. Brought to you by Alex and Brandon.
That's right.
We chatted.
We did.
That's why it's called Alex and Brandon Chat. Any last minute thoughts?
Very happy about E3.
Yep.
Wish I was there. Can't wait to see more trailers for these games. I feel like we're going to have a lot of old stuff to cover because it was just the two of us, but it's almost a 3-hour podcast. What else? Feel like maybe the next week we're going to have some movie trailers to talk about. We'll see.
I hope so.
Honestly, that's really about it. It's supposed to be a light week, and that light week turned into a 3-hour podcast.
There's going to be a lot cut out. Anyway, thank you all, each and every one of you, for listening. I hope you enjoyed it very, very much. I enjoyed it very, very much. And I will enjoy it again when I listen to it later. So...
You know who you sound like? The Old Spice guy.
Terry Crews?
No, the other one. Isaiah Mufasa, I think his name is.
Ladies, look at your man.
Now back at me. Now back at your man. Now back to me. Sadly, he isn't me. Or, I mean, you could be Terry Crews if you want. Old Spice!
Okay. Anyway, thank you for listening. Have a great week. And we will catch you all next week.
Bye.